Synth Network.
Evening everyone, or afternoon or morning, depending on where you're joining us. It's Rob here with the Pro Synth Network, episode, was it 59, I think, something like that. We're getting close to 60, soon be 100. That'll be a milestone and a half. But yeah, welcome. It is just gone 7 p.m. It's a little late starting, but don't worry, we'll make up for it in the end. I am, as ever, joined by my co-hosts Ben and Cryss, and this week we are delighted to welcome Scotland's finest synthwave superstar, based out of Toronto, Canada now, Mr. Michael Oakley. Welcome, one and all.
Good evening.
How are we? Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you for having me. I'm
thank
very excited about this, actually. You know, there's nothing more fun for guys like us to talk about synths, drum machines, samples and plugins.
That's it. Well, that's what we do. How is Toronto, Canada at the moment?
Oh, it's well, I'm wearing a tank top, so
it's
very, very hot. The summer came out just this past few weeks. Just the past week, sorry. So yeah, it's incredible.
Yes, and it's a love. I mean, I was there. It must have been 2 years ago now, because last year was all over the place. Yeah, it was 2019 I was out there. It's a lovely, lovely city. What is that place called? The underground thing, where it's just like a whole city underground. Is it the Walks or there's this big? It's just like all shopping and everything. And I went from one side of the city to the other, all underground.
It sounds like something at a Logan's Run, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's genuinely amazing. On my last day in Toronto, I had like an afternoon to kill, so I went to the CN Tower like a tourist, did the whole CN Tower. The weather came in just as I was going up in the lift, so when I got to the top I could see Jack, and it was just like every little break in the cloud here and there. Came back down, it was chucking it down with rain, and there's a hotel the opposite side of the railway station, and I heard somebody say, oh, you can access this thing, and I went down there and I was just like lost in this subterranean city. And apparently it's like when the winters come in, because obviously they come in, it's like everybody goes there, and it's fantastic place.
Wow, it's been that long since I've been shopping that I forgot.
You see. No, it's a lovely, lovely city. Well, anyway, look, thanks for coming. We will chat with you in greater depth about what you're doing, your new album, and how you make that, and all that kind of stuff. And
indeed,
we surround that with some news topics, which we'll discuss with our regular co-hosts from California, Cryss, and from sunny Warrington in the north of England. Is it sunny there? Because it's not here, mate.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
You've had the rain as well, have you?
Yeah,
lashing it, isn't it?
I'm hoping it's going to ease off tomorrow, because Saturday and it's chance.
Yeah, it's weekend, isn't it?
In the garden.
That's
even though I've got my new Matrix Brute there.
Look at that.
Lovely.
Nice. Lovely thing. You swapped that for the V-Synth, yeah?
Yeah, I drove down to, well, you can see the empty the empty slot.
Oh, yes, there's a damn great hole in there,
yeah. Drove down to Shrewsbury and met this great guy called Cryss. Cryss Marsh, I think his name is.
All right.
I got on with him so well. I invited him to the group and he's joined. So
yes, we saw that. Yeah,
everybody will get to know him. He's really good. Really happy with the synth. He's delighted with the V synth. I can't get over that thing. I've heard like mixed things about it, but I love it. I think it's great. You've
fallen for its Gaelic charms.
Yeah, it's laid out so well. Its sound is a little bit of an acquired taste, but it's brilliant to use, and cool. As a controller, every single knob and slider transmits MIDI, so you can set it up with all your stuff and to have all those controls there for every VST that you're using. It's brilliant.
Cool.
I made up with it, me.
Nice one. Well, we'll expect some demos of that at some point in the future, please. Thank you. Cryss, how is California today?
Dreadfully sunny. My June gloom has gone away.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. No, it's not good.
No?
No, I love it. It's my favorite time of the year. It's overcast until about 2 p.m. And just at that moment, you start getting a little bit down. Then the sun comes out, and you got half a cloudy day, half a sunny day.
Well, we've just had that first half all day. Actually, all week, I think. It's terrible. Lashing it down outside. It was blowing a gale as well earlier. But anyway, windows are shut, so we hopefully have no disturbance. Anyway, let's get some of the formalities out of the way, and we'll crack on with some of the news topics. Hello to everyone in the chat room. I'm not going to go through your names. I always say that, and then I end up doing it, but I genuinely am not going to go through all your names, because there's so many people there, but you all know who you are, and you're all very, very welcome. Hopefully, you'll be able to notice that we are coming at you in 1080p. And that's all thanks to you guys and girls, because your donations have helped us upgrade. So now we can come out in 1080p, and you can see like all the hairs on my unshaven chin, and all the hairs on Ben's unshaven chin, and none on my head, and none on the head. Yeah, you'll be able to get like 1080p glare. Look at that. I need to pad on my forehead
and everything now.
I know, it's terrible. But anyway, yes, thank you for that. So we're now broadcasting in 1080p. Thanks to everyone that kind of joined on the test thing that we did the other day. Let's just do the official business stuff. So we are obviously the Pro Synth Network, and you are watching us mostly, I guess, on YouTube, where you can find this and all our other previous shows. Of course, we started off on Facebook with the group at Pro Synth Network. We're also on Instagram and Twitter under the same handle to avoid any confusion. It's one size fits all, so please come and join us there. If you need to get in touch with us about anything in private, of course, you can email us info@prosynthnetwork.com. Talking of donations, as I said, your donations have helped fund this service that we're providing to you now. So we're now able to go in full HD. We will hopefully carry on that next year as well when we renew. So that's all thanks to you. If you want to continue with your amazing and generous donations, there's the address just down below there. And the link is in the description under the video. So thank you very much for all your past, previous and future donations. So that's all the formalities out of the way, I think. Let's get rid of that and let's start talking, shall we, about some news topics. We'll go through a few of these, and then we'll come to Michael and speak to him specifically about his new album, Odyssey, which came out last week and is very, very good, and about his working methods and what he uses, and what the synthwave scene is like now. And we'll surround that with some news topics. And the first one, I think Michael will have an opinion on this. And it's Reason 12, everyone. Reason 12 has been announced, and it's coming. They say the end of the summer, and it's going to have some new features, but nothing that's really earth-shattering. Now, I'm a big Reason fan. And at the moment, all they've announced is a new fully redesigned combinator, which is where you can load in a collection of the Reason instruments or VSTs and interconnect them and make them into one single combined instrument, hence the name. There's also a new sampler that's going to be in there as well. Now, I don't know if you remember, there used to be a sample feature in Reason that was just like really simple, really effective. You've got a couple of sample playback devices, NNXT and NN19, I think, is still in there. But this is going to be like a full-blown, proper kind of sampler. And high-res graphics, because we all were banging on about high-res graphics. Anyway, what's everyone's thoughts on... Because I know that, I think Ben and Cryss, you're not really kind of Reason guys. I know, Ben, you often, like... say, I've forgotten that Reason existed, kind of thing. But let's go to our guest first, because I know, Michael, that you you're a Reason guy because I've seen you on the Reason webpage when they did some interviews with you. So do you still use it, and is this likely to be an upgrade that you'll go for?
I do still use Reason from time to time. Yeah, I'm more into Ableton now, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
It's funny because, you know what I mean, you and I actually met through Reason, because this was many years back. Yeah. In the days of Way Beyond Fairlight and you know, all of that, and that's how we get connected, actually, through Reason. I did my full first album on Reason, and then the issue that I had was I wanted to use VSTs, and I did upgrade, and then the kind of issue I had was it was very temperamental with you know, using some VSTs versus some others, and then the project would be like, you do not have enough processing power. and then when I went to Ableton, I could have 10 of the same thing, and it wouldn't even take me past 20% CPU. So I was just like, the direction that I want to go in now, this is, you know, I don't understand why VST3 hasn't been implemented yet. That's the biggest one for me, I think.
Don't get me started.
And I think as well, if I am using Reason, I actually use it as a plugin in Ableton. That's great for me, because I mean, I always harped on to them about getting the Scream distortion unit. I love that tape setting and the overdrive. But I think in terms of where Reason's going now with 12, I'm surprised that there's no VST3 update. Really surprised at that. Equally, I've been banging on, because I'm on their test pilot program, so I kind of, you know, I get to like first dibs and get to play with it, and I've been playing with this for a little while, and it's like still no VST3s or audio units, because for Mac users, and I know that this will probably kick off something in the chat room about Mac versus PC. Please don't do that. Dumb. Yeah, but for Mac users, there are certain things. For example, Roland Cloud. Roland Cloud on the Mac is available as VST3s and audio units. On Windows, it's VST2 and VST3. So I can't use Roland Cloud in Reason, which is kind of one of the reasons, it was one of the factors that I moved to Logic, and I still use Reason, and like yourself, I use the Reason Rack plugin. But it was just, the ironic thing is the Reason Rack plugin, which allows you to use Reason within another environment such as Ableton or Logic, is a VST3 plugin. so they see the value in that.
Clearly. I mean, they understand, and every time I speak to them, they say, well, it's not top of our list, you know, VST2s are still supported, but VST2 is technically dead.
What happens if you load Reason into Reason as a VST plugin? Does it create like a parallel universe?
They've locked that door. They've locked that door tightly shut.
Because it's VST3.
Because it's VST3.
I was wondering. That's why I asked, because I thought that must be the reason. Maybe it caused some catastrophe in testing.
This is it. We all disappeared down this wormhole. Somebody was mentioning in the comments about Reason being subscription only, but it's not. You have the option now. You have the subscription or the perpetual license. So Reason 12 will not change that. And also, this is where I who I kind of in the loop advance of most people, I still don't understand this thing, because you've got Reason Suite, and I believe there was another kind of version of it. So I have Reason Suite, but they're getting rid of the Suite, and they're just making it like Reason Plus, which is the subscription version, and then just Reason, which is the normal perpetual version. It's very confusing.
It sounds it.
Yeah, it's funny, because I always think about when I first started using Reason. It was 2004, and I sold all of my hardware setup to get a crappy laptop. So so just to give you an idea of how crazy this is now when you think of this, I sold a Juno 106, I had an Akai S2000, a TX81Z. I had a Novation KS rack, believe it or not.
Oh yeah.
The 2 Electribes, a semi-decent PC at the time, and various other things. Of course, the Alesis 3630. If you didn't have that, who are you?
Yeah.
But I sold all of that equipment to pay like £1,400 for a Intel Celeron laptop.
No.
Right? So that I could run Reason 2.5. And the thing is, obviously, the valuation of that. If I'd kept all that gear, it would have held its value. But to be fair, I became way more creative and more productive through using Reason on the laptop, because that was the thing. Reason really opened up a door at a time when CPU was a difficult area, because I don't think computers had caught up to the consumer market at that point. So Reason for me was, I can afford a crappy laptop and run this program, and I can run maybe 12 tracks, and I'm actually doing compositions here, and this is great. And then as time went on, computer power caught up.
Yeah.
So they lost that edge, I think, if you know what I mean. I've taken people who maybe weren't able to run things like Omnisphere, or at that time, what was it, Atmosphere?
Yeah.
I remember the first sort of VSTs were massive, Sample Tank, all that type of stuff. But then they introduced the rack extensions, which was quite interesting, because that was like, this is kind of like their own exclusive VSTs made for their environment. And I think it was quite hit and miss, some of the stuff.
Yes.
Some of it was good. Some of it felt like it was clubbed together just to be flung out and to make some cash. It didn't feel like high quality products to me. And the quality control, I don't think, was vetted very well there. But now, in this day and age, with the programs that people use, I just can't believe that VST3 is not an option in that environment now. It just I don't see any plausible reason not to.
Yeah, it's almost like they take a couple of steps forward and they fix some things that people have been asking for, or they introduce some features that people have been banging on about for years. I mean, just simple audio recording. People were going crazy. And then what did they do when they released a separate program called Record, and it only took a year before Record was eventually merged into Reason, because they saw Reason. Anyway. They're kind of a law unto themselves, and in some ways that's really good, and in other ways it's not so much. But Cryss, Ben, do either of you have you thought about using Reason, or
I used to really like the rack, and if I came into loads of money, I'd probably get it just so I could try that rack, within Cubase. But I'm not interested in swapping to another system, but I am interested in more possibilities in the system I'm familiar with.
Sure. How about you, Cryss?
Yeah, no, I've never really looked into it, and probably because I was have been on Mac since about 2003, and then I don't remember, maybe was it 2005 or 6 maybe. The GarageBand came out, and then pretty quickly after that I got into Logic, and so have stayed with that the whole time. If the two of you were to sum up, what is it that Reason does particularly well versus the other DAWs?
Well, I'll hand over to our guest to say what he thinks. What do you think, Michael? What's the standout features?
Well, it's definitely a synthesizer person's dream, because it's a self-contained environment. That was always the appeal. It was like, and originally, so this is before they added the audio recording function. It was kind of like, this is like a rack full of samplers and synthesizers, and you've got some that are a little bit like cheaper sounding, like Subtractor, and then you've got something like Thor. You're like, this sounds just as good as any other VST out there, and it was all self-contained within this environment, and I think it had a lot of charm, but that was at a time when VST and synthesizer plugins hadn't really I guess, evolved into being like really usable. People would maybe use them because early VSTs had a sort of plasticky sort of sound to them, and I think that worked well if you had hardware set up side by side. But now it's all caught up. You know, once you've used something like Omnisphere, once you've used something like Nexus 3, Roland Cloud, Arturia V Collection, it's very, very hard to go back from that. Do you know what I mean? It's like you hear that quality and you think, well, this is amazing. You know, these all complement each other very nicely. And when you use Ableton was designed originally for live. That's why it's called Ableton Live. It wasn't really geared towards actual musical composition. But then as more and more people started to use it that way, they upgraded the features to make it more accessible for people like that. And it's now, if you're using audio samples, drum samples, chopping up loops, Ableton's king. Ableton is the absolute king for working with audio. So I don't know. I think they're at a bit of a difficult crossroads because they've done a smart thing by making it available as a separate plugin. That is a massive caveat because I know a lot of people that love some of the devices, the effects devices. I mean, I love that Scream unit. That Scream unit is absolutely out of this world. Nothing sounds like that. They also had that other unit as well that was like a kind of compressor dirt thing. I forget what it's called now. Pulverizer. I mean, that sounds great. It's subtle, but it's wonderful device. They have such great features, but in terms of, I actually, when I found out that they were releasing Reason as a plugin, I actually thought that they were going to filter out the DAW platform and start pushing this environment as a separate plugin. That to me would have probably been the smartest direction if they're not going to implement VST3. But if not, the only way forward for people to really want to sort of take on Reason is VST3. Without that, it's
no, absolutely. And you know, I've been using it since like the early noughties. I think I got in about 2.5, and the reason I got into it because I was a Cubase person, and I've told this story, so I won't go on too long about it. But I was all about Cubase, and Cubase just got more and more expensive. Every year they wanted another 150 quid for an upgrade, and it became more and more technical. And I spent more time tweaking the system to get it to work rather than making music. And so I tried everything that I could get my hands on. And Reason was the only one where I could fire it up, and within 30 seconds I could be making music. I could be getting that idea out of my head, and it just kind of stuck ever since. And I really struggled with giving it up. Well, I haven't given it up. I still have it, and I still use it. I try and force myself to use Logic first and foremost because that's a platform that with all my other work I have to do something that everybody else uses, and not many other people use Reason. So I kind of have to force myself to use Logic, but I do end up finding myself ending up back in Reason to get an idea down, and then maybe I'll transport it into something different. But it's it's a kind of a unique environment, and you either love it or you hate it. And I find it difficult to kind of cut the cord. I still have a soft spot for it, but
it's got a very dear place in our hearts.
Absolutely,
Reason for sure, because I feel like that unlocked a certain creative door for me. I used to be one of the types that would buy a lot of gear, and I actually wouldn't really make much music. I was thinking, can I call myself a musician at this point? Because I'm sort of like, but I think, as you know, with hardware's wonderful, but there is a bit of integration where you have to right, where's that patch I was using on MIDI channel 4? Okay, now I need to load the SCSI quick disk into the Akai sampler and find the samples, select the MIDI channel, and it literally takes about 10 minutes of preparation to set up a session sometimes. And
very true.
And I couldn't deal with that. But you made a very good point. All of the people that I work with, because I work like making sample packs and patch banks, And the people that I work with, the environments that they use, that we bounce sessions back and forth, is either Ableton, Logic, or FL Studio.
Yeah. So you got
that setup time, it is really something to take into account when you're thinking about your creativity. I have a Juno 106, and like to get it out of the closet, out of the case, set it up, move something out of the way to set it up, plug it in. If I'm going to set up MIDI, then set up all that kind of stuff. It takes a while, but in a Logic session, I can pull up that Softube Model 84, which sounds really good. And I'm flying right away within, like you said, under 30 seconds. You're ready to go, and you got something that sounds pretty amazing that you can work on it. I suppose you could go back and retrack things, but I mean the way that some of these plugins, not all of them, but some of them are getting fantastically good, to the point, again, like this Model 84, that it really makes me consider, am I going to go dig out my vintage synthesizer out of the closet, or am I going to just keep going with the creative spirit and track and get things done?
I think for the immediacy of getting ideas down, I think like the VSTs are definitely the way to go. And like we were just saying, the setup times when you revisit something are an absolute pain with hardware. They really are. It's like loading in samples, like Andrew was saying, and like synths without memories, looking at your photos and redialing it all in again. It's like a real pain. Yeah. So I think like the immediacy of VSTs are superb for that. And I've usually, if I'm using anything like analog now, I record it in as audio, because I just can't be bothered with that anymore.
Yeah, that's very true.
Can't be bothered with setting things up every time. It's like printed to the project and forgot about. That's the way it works now.
So anyway, that's Reason 12. It's they've committed to September 1st as a date to release. So yeah, if Reason's your bag, Reason 12 will be out in a few months' time. So we'll have a closer look at it when it drops then. Let's move on to something else that popped up this week, and is a welcome return to the dusty old world of the Mellotron for our friends at IK Multimedia. And they have launched Sampletron 2. Sampletron 1, or Sampletron, is a very old plugin that kind of got retired and abandoned, but they're back with a vengeance with Sampletron 2. And what I've got to say this, guys, first straight away, analog tape based sampling reborn. Please, this was not a sampler. It couldn't sample. The term came years after the Mellotron. It's a real bugbear. It's my Mark Doty thing, right? I get very aggressive about people that call this a sampler. It wasn't. It was a tape-based audio machine. Anyway, moving on. Sampletron 2 combines all of IK Multimedia's latest technology from Sample Tank 4 and a lot of the effects from T-Rax and others. There's also Chamberlins and Optigons in there. There's the 360 systems in there as well. Lots of great sounds. You can load in your own samples and treat those with the included effects, and it sounds really, really, really good. Looks nice as well. I always like a VST that has a nice aesthetic to it, and it does here. And you can either have the classic kind of white Mellotron, you can have the 400 in the dark wood. The Optigon comes up with its discs. There you go. So you can see lots of pretty casings here, and the split keyboard over there, and yeah, it's just really, really nice. And it's the first time where I thought, actually, here's a Tron plugin that's going to give GForce a little bit of a run for their money. It's got some wonderful effects in there, some lovely things that you can do with. There's a channel strip, the tape echo, multi-mod, and a vintage plate reverb. All of those coming from things like Mixbox and T-Rax. And you can use
2500 inspired that.
It does. Yeah, and you can either use it as a standalone VST or audio unit or whatever in your DAW, but you can also use it in Sample Tank. The library comes in as a Sample Tank library as well. So wherever you want to use it, you can. It retails for €199.99. It's currently on offer, depending on what you currently own with IK, so they'll give you a kind of a break. So I'm not going to say that this price here in the top right is probably what would my purchase price would be, but it's going to be between 150 and €200. I think obviously convert that. But yeah, the spec wise, it looks and sounds really amazing. 64-bit, 8 gig of library in there. Lots of stuff to play with. I've only had a chance to sort of muck around with a little bit of it. My one, apart from the fact that they're calling it tape sampling reborn, my other thing is that they have looped all of the samples, so that when you press the key down, it just continues and continues to play, rather than stopping after about 8 seconds when the tape would run out and then have to reset. So as far as authenticity is concerned, it's lacking a little bit, but it's a nice thing.
Can you not turn that off? Can you not have it in authentic?
That's what I've been looking for. If it's there, I can't find it. I can't find it. But
a strange omission, that.
Yeah, because there is a way to play a mellotron. With this kind of the spider hands, and it just kind of, it's not a killer. Let's be honest. Most of us will just be using it as a normal synth anyway. Yeah. But there was a question, or there was a comment, should I say, posted in our Facebook group that said, do we really need another Mellotron plugin? And I'm going to ask that question of Cryss. Do we need another Mellotron plugin? Is this the one to get?
I always welcome more. I don't see why we should be limited. Yeah, this was a bit of a walk down memory lane for me, I have to say, because last year I had my frustration because I couldn't get Sample Tank 1 onto my computer, and Sample Tank 1, I believe, was the first plugin that I ever purchased back in the day, because so coming in back then mainly as a guitar player, I'm like, oh, I love Mellotron sounds. I mean, the classics, the Beatles and King Crimson and everybody else that Led Zeppelin that used Mellotron sounds. And so that was one of the things that I had hunted down first and was not represented in what I already had in Logic. And so I was kind of upset when they stopped supporting it and they stopped you stopped being able to use what you already had and purchase. It was the only thing that I had from them that wouldn't work. And that's when I went down the M-Tron Pro road, which I don't regret at all, and it's such a fantastic sounding Mellotron machine. So I looked at this and I did pick it up, I think mostly out of nostalgia, because I didn't need it. And, talking about how many Mellotrons do we need, I mean, I've got, Logic added a Mellotron, a very simple one in there. I got the UVI one for free, a long time ago. I have the Sample Tank in the M-Tron Pro, and then also got it in the Arturia collection. Plus, there's other things that do it that have those samples in there. I think Omnisphere, and there's probably a couple more. So no, we don't need it. But this is one of those instruments that I'm really love the sound of, and I am really into. So, variations on it and what's going to be different about it. I mean, comparing just the few that I have, or the few main ones that I use, they all sound a little bit different. If I want that clean, pristine, I'm sitting down in front of a Mellotron in 1973, then I'm going to go to the GForce. If I want one that feels like it's been around the block a few too many times, then maybe I'll want to do the Sample Take. And of course, considering the other things, even if you get them really close sounding, what workflow works best for you, or what are you trying to do with it? How is it going to work? So there's room for them if you like it. And I would say that about anything the Juno sound or the Mini Moog. I'll keep buying them if they keep making it better.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, what I like about this, I say, a good-looking plugin is a nice thing to have. They've got all these different versions of the Mellotron, and other instruments are represented here within the library. So you've got the M1, you've got the Mark II, you've got the M300, the M400, the M400S, then there's the Novatron, then there's the Optigon and the Orchestron, and then you've got the 360, and there's even a VP330 in there, and then finally a modern kind of version of the Mellotron called the Modern, which features new acoustic and electric instruments designed specifically for the plugin. I was going through this library and found Fairlight samples in here. You know, the classic Syrah sample is in here. And so you can process that. I mean, not that's grainy enough as it is, but yeah, you can process that through here. So there's a lot of stuff in here. I kind of like the take. It's kind of taken the thing, you know, the Mellotron thing in a slightly different direction to, say, you know, M-Tron, which is, you know, always my go-to when it comes to Mellotron stuff, and their libraries, you know, the GForce libraries, which we'll come on to just very shortly, are probably, you know, the big, you know, key selling point, because they've just released a new one, which we'll talk about shortly, and it just is some great stuff in there. But Michael, I guess there's not a lot of call for a Mellotron in the kind of genre of music that you inhabit. Oh, he's gone all blocky.
Oh, sorry, you cut out there. Sorry, say that again, Rob.
I was going to say, I'm guessing the Mellotron is not, you know, kind of common in the synthwave genre.
Not yet. But it could be.
There you go.
As far as I'm concerned, absolutely, why not? But I think one of the key things is, like, you know, the question: do we need another Mellotron library? Well, if it's just the same thing, then no. But if it's, like you say, reimagined with different effects processors inside so that you can tweak the sounds, if there's different alternative samples to work with, like, you know, the Arturia one is the one that I have.
Yeah.
And I love that plugin version of it, because there's a patch in there called Two Wine Glasses, and it's gorgeous. It's one of the nicest patches that I've ever heard. But yeah, I mean, I love the sound of the Mellotron. I think it's got a very 60s and 70s quality to it, doesn't it? It sort of crosses from that Beatles world into more prog rock, and I love that.
Yeah, I do. I love the prog element of the Mellotron, and you know, Genesis particularly. You know, Watcher of the Skies. That intro is just amazing. Ben, 80s tribute band Supremo.
Well,
Space for a Mellotron in your act?
No, not in what I do. I mean, for original stuff, I'm open to anything, you know. And this sounds great. I wouldn't know which one to go for, but between that and the M-Tron, I just wouldn't have a clue. So, if I was in the market for it. This one looks better. This one looks better, but I reckon that the M-Tron probably sounds better from what I know from GForce's other stuff. But I don't know. It's not really something that I feel as though I need. You know, I've got like Omnisphere and things like that. I can get, if I do, on the odd occasion where I might try something along them lines. I've got things that will do it adequately for what I probably need. So, but it looks as though they've gone to town on it. They've, you know, with all those different versions, they're really handy if you've got multiple instances of things as well. You can visually, you know, identify them quickly. Oh, that's the brown one. That's the one that I'm using.
The brown one.
That's the one I'm using for the choir. You know. That's the modern plasticky one.
Yeah.
So there's nice little touches like that. I think they look as though they've really tried hard to make a quality product. You know,
they've certainly brought the original up to date, haven't they?
Yeah,
really well.
Yeah, so well done to them, but it's not really my.
No.
Yeah. What about you?
Couple more comments on it. One thing that's nice about the sample take is it comes with all their effects engine, which is pretty good. And they've got a new plate reverb. Like, I didn't really care for the other IK reverbs, but their new plate reverb sounds great on this. There's also the sample import, so you can I haven't tried this yet, but you can mellotronize, your other samples, and so I'm looking forward to trying that. I think that maybe the Arturia one does that also, but I just never got around to trying it. And I guess it'd be a lot. There's a lot of similarities to what people do to make things sound like it come from a Fairlight, and in that kind of regard. One really serious problem that I've had, though, just in the day of Sampletron 2, is the CPU usage is crazy. Okay. I had Pigments 3, running high granular patches, and it was about at the same level as this, which is playing samples. So there's something that's probably a little bit wrong in the code so far. In fact, it was a little bit less when I ran it out of Sample Tank 3. Mm-hmm. It seemed, but it was still high. So I'm not sure what's going on. Hopefully they'll get an update for that. They'll bring the usage of it, because it shouldn't be that high.
Yeah,
not with samples. It shouldn't.
No. The only problem I had with it was getting it to validate in Logic.
I had that problem too.
Glad I'm not the only one. It took me about 3 or 4 tries. First couple of tries, I thought I'll uninstall and reinstall. Maybe it's because I was updating some other things. And in the end, when you can call up the plugin manager in Logic and you find the faulty one, you can just rescan it. I just rescan. Oh, there it goes, and it's in. So it took a while for it to kind of validate, but once it validated, it was fine. But maybe there's some little bugs that need squeezing out of that one. But it's available now. ikmultimedia.com. Sampletron 2. Full price is $199.99, but I think the introductory price is $149.99. But you might get a better deal depending on. Chris, did you get a deal because you were like a registered Sampletron 1 owner?
Yeah, so they gave you, I can't remember what it was, like 30 jam points to take off the price. So when, or 30, I don't know. Oh, no, up to 30. Yeah, they give you like 30 jam points, and you can take up to 30% off the price. So for me, it ended up being under $105 for it.
That's good. That's not bad. That's not bad. But whilst we're sort of on the Tron vibe, we do need to mention this in the interest of fairness, and because we love the guys so much. So GForce Software have announced a new library for let's get this into the thing. Here we go. This is the Streetly Tapes Volume 6. It's a mere 25 of your English pounds, excluding VAT, of course. And it's just got some really bizarre tones on there. And there's a lovely demo on there. I'm not going to go through it now because we'll probably end up getting hit for something or other. But yeah, it's a really, really, really odd but very interesting library of sounds. And I didn't realise it until I started digging around that you can get the entire M-Tron Pro plugin and all of the libraries at a crazy reduced price. It's like $269, I think, for everything. Yeah. Which, when you then compare that to the price of Sampletron, what you're getting, it starts to get very competitive in that market. But I love M-Tron Pro. I've always liked it, and it's got some great sounds in there. And I'm always staggered at how often I hear the sounds of M-Tron Pro in modern day productions, because it is still a very popular thing. But yeah, Streetly Tapes Volume 6 is out now if you are an M-Tron Pro user, and it costs a mere £25. Is reduced half price for launch. But if you haven't got it, let me see if I can bring up the page here, because they're doing this massive deal.
This one is interesting, and it's a little bit different than the other releases in that it has kind of a mismatched samples on each of the tape sets. Yeah. So it sounds really complex. It's almost like going from digital oscillators to analog, and then you have all that variation. And so I haven't gotten this downloaded yet, but the sound of it I thought was very dynamic, moving, sounded really rich. So I'm interested in hearing it. Yeah.
So there you go. M-Tron Pro Complete, which is the plugin plus 10 library banks in there. Streetly Tapes 1 to 5, plus the SFX, the M300, the Optitron, the Orchestron and the Chambertron for $269, which is just a little bit over 50% of the full price if you to buy those separately. So, and the plugin itself is just a mere $99.99. It comes with a stack of samples in there as standard. So we are spoilt.
Set itself is probably enough for most people.
Oh gosh,
and when you grab all those other ones, one of the fun things is they've got some really rare stuff, but also they've also curated their own sets. So the isolation choirs where they've gone and recorded all sorts of people, including like our friend Alex Ball, and many other people that are some of the most interesting sounds in there. Yeah,
for sure. So anyway, that's the Streetly Tapes Volume 6 is out now for £25, and of course you can buy M-Tron Pro Complete for $269, and before that, of course, IK Multimedia's Sampletron 2 is out now for $199 introductory price with €50 off. Let's move on to something that will then hopefully segue nicely into a little bit more of an in-depth chat with this week's guest. This was one that Simon Alexander, our dear friend, brought to our attention on the Pro Synth Network Facebook page. And I have to admit, I'd seen this a number of times before and dismissed it out of hand because it was called, let me just find the correct tab here. It's from a company called Beatskillz, and it is called Synthwave Drums. And so I just kind of dismissed it out of hand because I thought I don't want a library that's specific to a genre. I want a bit more for my money, and I'm just, in case you've figured, I am filling it for time because I've lost the plug. There it is. Right, so let's share this. I do this every week. So this is Synthwave Drums, and it is a stupid reduction in price from $79 to $9. And it features something like 1,300 or more synthwave type drum sounds, and there are kits, there are kick and snare libraries, all sorts of stuff in there. 63 multi-drum kits, 13 kick snare combos, 5 banks of claps, 4 banks of cymbals, 8 hi-hat banks, and so on and so forth. And I have to say, it does sound rather nice. Let's see if we can get a demo up here. You guys getting the volume on that yet? Good. And so it also comes with a multi-out version of the plugin as well. But you get the gist. I mean, it is typical kind of synthwave drums, and so the multi-out version sounds quite nice because then you can route each drum to your own channel and mess around with it. The sounds are typically 80s kind of drum machine sounds, but as an avid 80s drum machine fan with a number of them around here, I like getting those sounds myself. Do we need something that's like synthwave drums by numbers? I don't know. Let's ask the synthwave artist in the room. What do you think, sir? Is this something you'd use?
Maybe. I mean, you've got to, I guess, look at it this way. You're telling me for $9 you're not going to get something out of that?
That's exactly.
I mean, also, I guess, as well, you look at a platform like Splice, which is literally, I mean, it's like Netflix. Do you know what I mean? For samples, you can type in anything on there. You know what I mean? Jeff Bridges laughing. Oh, there you go. There it is. There's a 16-bit sample. But yeah, I think so. I think that these products are actually really good because when they're genre specific, if you're working on say you're a composer, soundtrack composer, and the brief is, I need something that sounds kind of 80s, like, modern 80s. The way I look at synthwave drums is that it's, it's old drum machines from the 80s that have been layered and processed with modern, production techniques to make them sound a little more punchy. I think that was probably the downfall of some of the old drum machines, is that the kick sounds didn't have the low end that you want in modern music. even the 90s actually, some of the dance music, the kick sounds just didn't have that thumping low end, which now is one of the reasons why a lot of 90s music doesn't sound so great. It's my wife. She's going back to work.
Hello.
All right, I'll see you later, darling.
Waving, she can't see us.
A cameo appearance. A cameo. Yeah, I think the those types of. I mean, this is the way I look at it, because obviously, Robbie, you have a lot of equipment in the background. I have a few bits and pieces, which we can get to later. But to be honest with you, when I'm composing and making music, the last thing I want to be doing is creating sounds or chasing a drum sound by there's a kick, it's kind of right, I better EQ this right and compress and I'm just like no think there's something that's the closest approximation, drop it in, let's continue and get moving with this track and find the right vibe.
And then would you go back and change that to maybe something slightly different, but you've got the thing that you wanted? Like, it's almost like, I've got a demo of something I need, and then I can go back and fix it later or do something better later. Absolutely.
The hardest part is getting the idea down, because you can always go back and say, you know what, that snare drum it's a little too slappy. That's not the right kind of snare drum I'm looking for. I need something that's a little bit more like a biscuit crunching, like a digestive biscuit. You know,
you know what
I'm talking about.
Interest, I do.
But that's the thing. I think products like that are really handy because someone has done the hard work for you. They've basically taken the time, and I know from making sample packs, I spent like a whole week bouncing drum sounds into a Roland S330 sampler just to compress it and get that 12-bit quality and bounce it back out into the session. And you imagine doing that for about 400 or 500 individual hits. It's like, well, put it this way, I've sold the sampler. It's no longer here. But, I think you think about when we all first get into synthesizers, right? The thing that appealed to us, I think, I'm hoping I speak for all of us here, is that what really sold it for us was the patches. I mean, you think of the unsung heroes, we know now who they are, but back when you played a Roland D50, you had no idea. The unsung hero here is Eric Persing, because he created all these patches, and these patches are like, I only found out today that Pizza Go-Go sound is in Englishman in New York, that Sting song. I was like, that's a D50 patch. So these guys that are making these patches, samples, and creating products, they are doing the legwork for you. So all you have to worry about is being creative. That's how I look at it.
That's very interesting point. I mean, I would always look at this thing as like, oh, here's another music by numbers, and I can just go out and buy a Synthwave drum pack and a Synthwave chord pack or a Synthwave MIDI pack. Dare we say that? We'll probably get bombarded with MIDI pack adverts.
Let's not go there.
Yeah,
I hate those adverts.
Yeah, but it's this music by numbers, and there's another thing we're going to be talking about, where I think I said to you earlier before you were talking earlier today, and I said I dismissed this out of hand because it was, to me, it was like almost like music by numbers, but actually I used it and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I'm going to use this more. So we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I see what you mean. Cryss, did you get a chance to listen to this? Is this something? Again, I hate to kind of pigeonhole people, but this doesn't strike me as your thing. But maybe I'm wrong.
I love those sounds, and the Lindrum and that kind of sound is fantastic. It was an RX-11. Is that the Yamaha that you have now, Robbie?
That's the one I got last week. Yeah,
that thing sounds great. I mean, those are classic sounds, and even though I don't do a lot of like 80s synth pop, or at least I don't don't share a lot of the stuff that I do from that genre. I still love those sounds, and I like listening to it. And so, the problem with this one and why I didn't pick it up, and the price is great. I like, the vibe of this kind of sounds is that it's not supported past Catalina, and I'm on Big Sur. So
yes,
that's a huge deal for me. Or else I would have probably spent the $9 to get it. Now, one thing that I've been thinking of, Samples from Mars came up in the chat, and those are tremendous value when you get them on sale. The whole collection, I mean, it's outrageously cheap, and that's drums and vintage drums and synthesizers, everything. And so the problem that I've had so far and why something like this works so well is it, like, you pull up a plug-in window, everything's organized for you, you click a few things and you got what you want. Whereas when you're starting to get all the samples, you got to figure out a workflow that works for you, and especially for me, that's come from more traditional instruments and not samplers. Like I still have more to figure out about that. Like I have done some work with the Logic sampler, and I was using some samples from Mars. Reverb has a collection of drum machines also.
Yes, yeah.
And so what I've been looking to recently, and kind of waiting for a decent sale, would be. What's the name of it? Hold on, I got the name of it here. Let me look it up. There's a program's XLN Audio XO, there was another one, I think Atlas something, where they basically it's kind of a sample player and sequencer, but it draws from whatever samples that you have on your computer, and you just direct it. Here's folders. It already categorizes. Here's all the kicks that are very similar. If you move in this direction, they'll get brighter or they'll get thumpier. I like the idea of that, and that's something that I'm looking forward to sometime this year when it goes on sale at a decent price. I already had a sale, but it wasn't enough off because I Google past prices to find out what I can get at the best.
You're a candy shopper, aren't you? You are a candy shopper.
Hey, I got lots of gear to buy and not enough money to do it, so I've got to be careful about that.
Preach, brother.
So yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to maybe get some more of those classic drum sounds into the music. I mean, I'm still got Easy Drummer and stuff which I can pull, and that Hex drum is a lot of fun and has a lot of great 80s sounds, but. Yeah, I think this would be cool. Unfortunately, it's just not supported, so I haven't tried it.
No, that's fair enough. Electromantics will be using this or not? Give us a bit more gain, by the way. You're a little bit...
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
I downloaded it. I bought it. Downloaded it, and I think it'll be useful in the original stuff. It's very lo-fi. But it does have a bit of that authentic old drum machine feel. And I quite like that, but I think it's a little bit... it sounds weird. It's a little bit too lo-fi for what we're doing.
Okay.
We're all about, as clear as everything can be. You know, it's like the 80s remastered kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So anything lo-fi we wouldn't really go for, but I would use... that kind of thing. I have bought it. It was only £9.
Yeah, I mean $9 or what was it? £6.45.
It wasn't even £9, was it? It was $9. So it was £6 odd, and it's good. It's got a lot of sounds in it. The presets are really messed up. It says click here to go through the presets, and number 87 was at the top, and
I noticed that as well.
Wow, what's going on here?
Again, something else that I noticed. I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Yeah, and it started at the initial preset that comes up when you first load it is Tom's, the Tom kit. And
very strange organisation. But once I'd figured out, I could start pulling out some decent sound.
Yeah, but like chromatically, Toms normally go down the keyboard.
Yes.
And these go up. It's like you're going do. It's like, whoa, what's going on?
Can you do that again?
This isn't right. This isn't right. It doesn't work in my head.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see any way of editing that the right way around. So it means you'd have to adjust all your tom positions in your track if you were going to put it in. But Yeah, it sounds nice in a lo-fi way. It doesn't record automation. I tried that out, and I was messing with the release times and the panning and the volume, and none of that for me. None of that for me recorded any of it. It didn't do anything.
Oh, well.
But yeah, for £9, if you want like lo-fi drums, the graphics are beautiful as well.
Yeah.
Whoever's done the graphics has done a cracking job at that. It's like really, really good visual look on it.
And they're also supplied, all the samples are supplied as WAV files that you can then just load into wherever you want. So there is that. I kind of get the impression that Beatskillz is either a one or a two-man show, and that they've come up with a decent way of making things look pretty on screen and attaching a big chunk of samples to it. Maybe they just need to iron out a few little things, but like you say, for $9 you really can't go wrong with this. If you're looking for that kind of thing,
isn't it? Get it?
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you are interested in that, it's Beatskillz with a Z or a Z, depending on where you come from. Beatskillz.com, and it's called Synthwave drums. They have a whole bunch of stuff, which apparently is all on offer. So there's Synthwave keys, there's dark keys, breakdance drums. You can even buy bundles and save a bit more money that way. Although, when I was looking at the prices, so for example, if all of these were $9, what's this? 4, 5. So there's 9 packs there. So what's that? That's £81. And then you go to the Super 80s bundle, and it was like $249. So I think, maybe they need to look at that. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. But anyway, throw some money their way. It's only a small amount, and hopefully that will encourage them to finesse things a little bit more. That kind of brings us nicely, I guess, onto our guest for today, who is, as we see, Mr. Michael Oakley, who I would say, and I don't say this lightly, he's probably one of the best vocal synthwave artists, because there's a lot of synthwave out there that has no vocals at all. It all sounds very derivative and very samey. But when you came to my attention, I thought, I like this. This is good because it's original songwriting, but it has that 80s feel. You got a good set of pipes on you, mate. I've got to say that. And you know how to put a tune together. And it's everything that you could possibly want from that kind of genre of music. So my first question to you, and we've got a bunch of them, my first question to you is, how did it all start? How did a boy from Glasgow end up where he is today? Where did it all start?
Wow, it's a big question. Well, I guess my story in summary is that when I was at high school, that was in the 90s, and I was into 80s music. Nobody else was. So I used to get quite a hard time off of all people that liked Oasis and stuff like that, and Nirvana, and they were just, what are you listening to that for? And I'm like, because it's amazing. And that was when I first get into music. The first thing that I ever heard, which is because I'm looking at the camera, is this. As you can see, this is
Violator Rose.
My favourites. The song that changed everything for me was when I heard "Enjoy the Silence." That immediately, everything about that record, I was just like, that is what I want to do. I want to do music that's like that. And then once you discover Depeche Mode, you go down the rabbit hole. New Order was the next one that I get into, but then life just changed when I'd get into Pet Shop Boys. That for me was, like, I would say probably a large part of what I do, whether I like it or not, is defined by that initial obsession, I would call it, with Pet Shop Boys. And then Erasure, obviously, I'm a huge Vince Clarke fan, and so at that point, I was kind of disheartened because retro wasn't a word that was in people's vocabulary at that point. So all it was I was just some weird guy that listened to music that's 10 years out of date that nobody else was listening to, unless they were like over the age of like 35 at that point. And so I kind of spent a good maybe 20 years in bands, trying to sort of fit into more mainstream sort of sounding stuff, and I would add some of my retro stuff in there, but usually the feedback that I got from record labels was, no, we need you to dial that back, and you know, it sounded somewhere between Coldplay, Keane, but with Duran Duran in there, I suppose. And I you know, I went through a long period of being in bands, doing that, writing in bands, and it just didn't work out. And then fast forward to 2016, I had stopped writing for quite a few years. I had become disheartened with it all, and then I went through a personal trauma of you know, splitting up from the girlfriend that I was with at the time, and because of that, I had to move back home with my father for a while, and while I was, you know, tail between my legs and sort of, I guess, finding myself again, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna write an album, and this time it's not for other people. This time it's for me, and I'm going to write the kind of music I wish that was being put out. You know, the type of music that I loved listening to when I was growing up, and trying, you know, I must have learned something over the years working in bands, you know, like modern production. And the first song that came of that was Rabbit in the Headlights. That was the first song that I had came up with, and then developed more ideas, and that became the California album. And yeah, I mean, that was how I sort of, I guess, became, you know, the starting of where I'm at now. Yeah.
And so California comes along, and it's a success. I mean, I've got my vinyl copy downstairs, along with the second album as well. We're going to try and get this third album sorted, because, you know, obviously you're on, because this is the thing with the synthwave world. You look like a rabbit in headlights at the moment. They're all on your own screen. Let's bring me in. Do you like what I did there? But no, the thing is with the synthwave world is there's lots of labels, aren't there? And there's some of them are just like, you know, one-man bands. Some of them are fairly decent-sized operations. And I was looking at the sleeve. California was on one label. Now that was on Time something or other.
Yeah,
now you're on New Retro Wave.
Yeah, I'd released the album independently at first, and then I was approached by Time Slave to do a physical release. Yeah. So you know, I had seen the other releases that they had put out. They were incredibly high quality, and I get sent a few copies of you know, the version which you have now, and it was really high quality. It just looked fantastic, and I was really happy with how they handled that. But then after that, I was still an independent musician, so I had the chance to go with New Retrowave, and you know, if I'm being honest, that was who I wanted to go with right from the start. You know, I really had my sights set on that, because I love New Retrowave. I love the station, and I love the fact that it allows me to retain the rights to my music, and so that's important to me, and I think it should be important to anybody that's a musician. Is the devil's in the details, so be careful with the small print in the contract. You know, it's just not right that someone else should own your music, unless there's some severe financial remuneration for you in the promotion and then afterwards. But that was a big selling point for me, and they've been so kind to me as well. Like they were putting up my songs from California, all of them actually, on that YouTube station, and I got a huge lift from that.
Because there has been, in the past, there's been a lot of kind of bad feeling and bad business done with certain labels, and I'm not going to mention any names, but there have been labels that have been going out there trying to grab hold of synthwave artists and then put their stuff out on compilations, and then not paying the artists, and the artists are getting screwed over. It seemed, because it's such a huge thing. I didn't realize how big it was until I started kind of literally falling down a rabbit hole and hearing stuff. I used to work at a radio station, which you must be familiar with, that we did a lot of synthwave promotion on there. We even had our own synthwave shows and everything. And there's just this massive stuff, and everybody's trying to get in on the game, and it seems like there are some bad actors out there. But New Retrowave certainly are doing the business for you and doing it well.
Yeah, I it's something which probably more and more recently I've been a lot more critical of, is that I feel like there's a particular sort of style in synthwave that's a low bar entry for a lot of producers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's easy to churn out, that 118 beats per minute, walking bass line, sort of just that driving bass line. And it's like 707 drums or Linn drums, Poly 6 bass, and then just whatever you put over the top. And it's got old real fast.
Oh, tell me about it.
So I feel like there's a lot of people who are riding on the coattails of someone else's sound, and I always say this, never follow trends, because by the time you follow the trend, it's already on its way down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like by the time, for every oasis, there's a cast and a supergrass.
Yeah, thankfully.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
it's like it's one of those things. But yeah, when it came round, it's funny when you mentioned that, because when it came to doing Introspect, and this was the first album that I was doing with like a big label, the biggest label in the scene for sure, and I was a little nervous because I was obviously there was talk of things like we're gonna do a music video, we've got a budget for this and stuff, and so obviously I'm used to just shouldering the responsibility. So if I screw up, then it's on me. But then if you screw up when someone else is, I guess, your venture capitalist, then you feel like an even bigger idiot, because you've got them to worry about. Yeah. But when I did Introspect, I made a decision to not do a synth wavy sounding album. I made a big decision to do, I guess, what you could call it's my tribute album, because it pays tribute to Pet Shop Boys, New Order, Depeche Mode, Tears for Fears, and it pays tribute to another genre that I love, Italo disco. Bow before Italo disco. It's just the greatest, cheesiest, most amazing genre ever created. So I figured, you know what? If everybody else is going to be doing this synthwave sound, I've got a good feeling about this. I think if there's anybody in the scene that could do this, it's me. Do you know what I mean? Because I grew up listening to that at the wrong time, and I always had this, this real sort of deep feeling of like, I love this music, and everyone else around me is telling me it sucks. But who's laughing now? Do you know
exactly?
What I mean? Who's laughing now? So Introspect is my 80s synth pop tribute album.
Okay, so if Introspect is your tribute to your heroes, what is Odyssey, your new album?
Odyssey is more of I didn't really know what I was doing with Odyssey. I think I often say this, whenever I finish an album. So when I finish California, excellent, I finished this, I'm happy, it's wonderful. And then this minute later, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this all over again? Oh my goodness. And then after Introspect, I was kind of like, I really hope the scene responds well to this, because I know it's a little bit of more of a departure into a kind of authentic 80s kind of synth pop sound. I hope that they appreciate this, and it was, and it took things up another notch, and I had that amazing feeling of, oh, good, wonderful, this is going really well. But then immediately, oh my goodness, how am I going to follow this up? The stakes get higher and the pressure becomes bigger, and so I just decided not to. I thought, you know what, I've always went my own way with this, and I'm just going to follow this and see what happens. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I can see now that what I've done is lean more into that late 80s kind of early 90s MTV AOR sort of synth pop rock kind of thing that you get from people like Phil Collins, Peter Gabriel, and it's a bit exotic sounding, and I guess you could say tropical, if that's the right word. There's a lot of DX sounds in there that I've used. You know, I've really grown to love and appreciate DX FM synthesis. I fully confess I used to be up my own ass in analog. You know, I think, and I know a lot of people that were like that. You know, when I was a kid, you know, I didn't have a lot of money, so whenever I bought a synthesizer, it was a big deal. And if I wanted to try another synthesizer, I had to sell this one to get the funds in the local ad trader in order to have the funds to go on another advert on ad trader. Oh, someone's selling a Korg Poly 800. I wonder what that's like. Oh, there's someone selling a Korg M1 for like $200. I mean, that's amazing. I wouldn't mind trying that out.
Yeah.
And so I went through this period in the 90s of trying out a lot of Rompler synths, analog synths, because analog was so cheap back then. You could pick up a Juno 106 for £80 at one point, £100. And it was a very rare period, maybe 4-year window where you could do that. It was just so cheap, and then the prices just, and even to this day they're still going up. But I was a bit of a snob, you know. I was very much, you know, it has to be analog, and you know, nothing else will do. And then I kind of became a lot more appreciative of FM synthesis, especially on Introspect. All of the bass sounds on Introspect are FM basses, and even if there's analogy type sounds, they're layered with DX to have the top, which is what
it's what people did back then.
Yep, absolutely, and especially in Italo disco.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of different sounds on Odyssey, which I deliberately pushed it into more modern sounding as well, because 90s is a difficult territory. You know, there's some good 90s stuff, but there's a lot more bad 90s stuff.
Yeah.
You know, sure. A lot of the decline of many of my favourite 80s acts obviously starts in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
You know?
Very true, very true. Guys, Ben, Chris, you got any questions you want to throw to Michael?
I wondered about, I've listened to Odyssey, and I like the way you described it then, because I was told that you were like a really huge synthwave producing artist, and I heard it. I thought, this doesn't sound synthwave to me. It sounds like American AOR stuff, you know, like you were saying. But it's absolutely brilliant. It's got a real retro vibe to it, and it's quality songwriting, but the production's great. I was wondering who produced it, where did you record it? It's got that. It sounds like it was recorded at Sam West with, you know, Steve Lillywhite or something. It's got that big sound. Everything sounds really well recorded, like it was recorded to tape, and it was through a big SSL desk. I'm just intrigued as to, did the record company say, yeah, we're going to stick you there for like 6 months, or is it something that you've done on your own, or what is the story behind the album?
Yeah, I do all of it at home.
Wow.
I have a few people that I do work with at different stages. You know, there's certain production choices that I kind of made early on. Like, for instance, I wanted to use the Lexicon digital reverb from '86. You know, the one that's got that gorgeous diffusion, sort of expansive, lush, and you can hear it, and especially on stuff like the track Real Life, you can hear on some of those high notes that I sing, you hear it having that high end ring that it just rings out, and it's got that character. But I do a lot of layering, actually. I like to pull out a lot of sounds to make it sound like it's one sound on its own. My sessions usually have about 160 tracks thereabouts, and you know, a lot of those are vocals, to be fair. I mean, I would say probably maybe 40 of those are vocal tracks, and there's my main vocal, my double track, and then my harmonies, but then I have female harmonies in there as well from maybe 2 different singers, and then I work with Ollie Rides as well. He's really well known, loved figure in the scene. And but you know, to what you're saying about it's not really synth wavy, that, you know, it's funny because I think maybe, I guess I felt like I had a lot of chats with Ollie Ride about this, you know, that if everybody else is doing this one thing and it all sounds kind of the same, then you can do one of 2 things. You can either jump on that bandwagon and hope for the best, or you can see that as a real opportunity to stand out, because if in a world where everything's sort of sounding the same, if you come out with something that sounds so different, but it's not so far removed that it wouldn't be appreciated, then I guess quality always stands out. I feel that's something very true. It always finds its feet, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even if it's posthumously, like afterwards when somebody's doing something. I mean, how many people have we seen in the synthwave, or sorry, not synthwave, but in the synthesizer community who later on have come to be given the recognition that maybe they weren't given 40, 30, 50 years ago? You know, it's that quality is always in retrospect given. So the AOR thing I felt like was a good direction to go in, because I love songwriting. Mm-hmm. And I love storytelling, and you know, all of the people I love have got great songs. You know, that's the thing. You know, Vince Clarke might have been known as being this incredible synthesizer geek genius, but the songs are fantastic. You know, Andy Bell's lyrics and melody lines and all of that stuff, that's what makes it all work. You know, Pet Shop Boys as well, Depeche Mode, it's all great writing.
Yeah. Very true. How about you, Cryss? Got any questions?
You know, I kind of feel the same way, and just from, you know, a personal perspective, when you try to do stuff like that, it's a little bit scary because you're venturing into territory that's not recognized, and you know, what happens a lot, I think, is that people will initially put it down because you're not doing what you're expected to do, and that's I think when you start combining things like, you know, different genres and different styles, that there's some really fun things that happen. And I definitely appreciated the songwriting aspect of your album. I have a neighbor lives a street behind me, and I guess as I was getting to know him, he was like, "Here, I want to show you this band," and it was, I guess, it is one of the most well-known synthwave bands. I won't say which one it is. And he played it. I was like, "Wow, I really like this aesthetic." But the songwriting was so boring. Like, I mean, after I'd heard one song, I felt like I'd heard the whole album because it was all the same. And so, you know, kind of listening through Odyssey was nice because, like, oh, there's really some thought gone into this. And that's not a question. I just wanted to say that.
No, thank you. I definitely take it. It's funny you mention that, because I think of my favourite albums, you know, albums like Pet Shop Boys, Please, albums like Peter Gabriel, So, and you think they don't have a lot of tracks. They maybe have 8, 9 or 10 tracks, and even Robert Palmer was fantastic for this, where you would stick on his album and it would take you on a journey of different tempos, moods, and sounds, and there would be different players. You'd be like, oh, there's Wayne Shorter playing, you know, on that, you know, there's Dominic Miller playing guitar on this, or everyone's favourite Steve Lukather. Yeah. There's Steve Lukather again on guitar on that track, and it made the album interesting because every different song. I mean, I approach my albums like a tapas menu. I always, I can't get past that comparison, because, you know, I like to have different dishes, but I like to be able to consume those dishes in one sitting. So it's why the album is only 8 tracks long, and it's got a running time of like 34 minutes, I think. And that's good because that means that you can go out for a walk and you can listen to that whole album in one sitting and hear it all and appreciate it, and be taken on that roller coaster of the emotional journey. And as well as that, my favorite albums, depending on what day you catch me on, I'll like a different song from that album depending on my mood. Do you know what I mean? So it's good. I'm glad you mentioned that because I find that's what's really lacking in a lot of synthwave albums, that you stick it on and it just feels like it's almost like the same thing, like from start to finish, the same tempo, the same bass line, the same sort of vibe, and it's like they're even using some of the same sounds, and it's just
it's very derivative, isn't it?
And I like
it's lazy.
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
It's lazy production, I think.
Yeah, and I like the analogy that you used of the roller coaster, because I think that describes it well. Like, when I think about my favorite albums, they have different sections to them, right? I mean, there'll be like 2 or 3 song clumps that are like, okay, you start the album and it's kind of pushing forward, and you get to song 3 or 4 that's slowing down and heading in another direction, and then that, gosh, I'm just preaching again what you said, but that kind of, I grew up on those classic rock albums that are a little bit older, late 60s, early 70s. Stuff that you would get, like a long album might be 42 minutes. But to me, like that 35 to 42 minutes was like such a perfect place. And then, like you said, you have different time signatures, different keys, different tempos. And it seems like it's not, we were picking on synthwave and stuff like that, but it really goes across all genres right now, because if you listen to a lot of modern rock albums, it's the same thing. It's an hour of basically 2 songs, and that's become kind of an epidemic. And then when you have a lot of people that are making their own music and putting it up on YouTube, you find a very similar pattern. Like, there's not much variation in any of this, and it's hard to get out of that. I mean, here would be a question for you, because I think we tend to kind of get sunk into what we like, and which is okay. And I want to revisit the things that I like a lot, because that's what I like. How is it that you get yourself out of that cycle where you can keep going different places? Do you think of it more in terms of an album, like, okay, I've got this kind of song, I need a different kind of song here, it should be like this? Or is it more as you're going song by song in the writing process, and later you're shuffling things to make that work?
That's a good question. I think one of the main things for me is probably that I don't write every day. And I think if I'm working on like sample packs or something like that, that's different. There's a different mentality. But the way I always approach my own music is I only do it when I feel like it. And so that way, whenever I go to do it, I'm in a good place, and it's not a kind of, right, I better churn something out here, and I guess I should make it maybe 122 beats per minute. I kind of just, I can go months without writing for my own music, but then I have that little burst of, I come up with 2 solid ideas in 1 month, and I get them all developed. But yeah, what you're saying about that kind of diversity in sound, as I'm progressing through the album, I'll notice that maybe there's a couple of tracks that are on the lower end of the tempo spectrum, and I'll maybe think, maybe this time around I'm in the mood to do something that's a little more up tempo, because I'm aware that this new album, there's a lot of stuff that's on the album that's around 90 beats per minute, 100 beats per minute, and then there's a few kind of more up tempo numbers in there. But yeah, I am conscious of that, towards the end of it. But staying inspired, I guess I listen to a lot of new music. Sadly, a lot of it isn't that good, but the problem is, it's like going to a jumble sale. You have to literally shift through all this stuff until eventually something shiny comes out, and then you're like, this is a gem. I'm glad I went through this to find this diamond in the rough. But it's getting harder and harder to do that. I think what you said about all genres now, modern genres like rock and pop and even sadly synthwave, it's like formulaic things take over. What people notice as being trends is what kind of gets pushed. I mean, I'm seeing even now, when you obviously you guys are in the UK, for you guys it's football, for people over this neck of the woods it's soccer. I've noticed this trend now of like, when you watch a game, up will come all these like weird sort of sci-fi stats of how many pass completions the person did, how many shots on target, like
how many yards they've run.
How many yards they've run in it, and it's like
very Americanized.
Being aware of that type of thing must create a certain anxiety to sort of produce a certain way. Now I know obviously the goal of sports is to win, but the goal of music is, in my mind, is to create something which emotionally people connect with and are either moved by or entertained by. Like my favorite rock albums are Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, when will we ever hear an album like that again, where you put that album on and you can't just put that album on from track 4. You put that album on from track 1 and you listen all the way through until the bit with the clocks come in and you absolutely crap yourself. But like albums like that, and even you look at a band like Pink Floyd, the next album they came out with was Wish You Were Here, and you listen to Shine On You Crazy Diamond, and it's nothing like Dark Side of the Moon, and it's like step away from what they've done previously. They evolved. There's an evolution in artists, even people like Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins. You listen to where they started to where they sort of, when Peter Gabriel's high point, there's such a massive progression in the sound, but now I don't really think you see that much progression. I think you're hearing a lot of homogenized, watered down, commercialized stuff, and it's not nice. It's boring. It's like having the same thing for breakfast every day.
I think maybe some of it comes from the kind of single mindset. Like we got to release hit singles, hit singles, and then not having an album mindset for a lot of artists anymore. To me, the album was this glorious thing that in itself was, it shaped how you listen to those songs, right? The context of each of the songs, even things like the album artwork, really affected how I visualized it. I mean, I've got some albums, record albums up on the wall. Although I probably growing up, I listened to tapes and CDs, but the cover art, how that affected you, Sergeant
draws you in. It draws you in.
You're like, what kind of journey am I going on with this? And then you think, just like you're saying between Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here, it goes to totally different places. And then you go to Animals or The Wall, and you're like, you're going to different places every single time. It's a different journey, and we've kind of lost that art and music.
Absolutely. I keep on saying this, the lost art of the album has been missing for so long now from modern mainstream, as well as in all of these little subgenres and niche genre sort of places, which is why I try to bring that back in my own music. I do think in terms of the album, how it sounds, even down to like things like I like an intro track in my albums that sets the tone for the rest of the album. Introspect and Odyssey have that. Both those albums are 8 tracks long. I don't like to have more than 8 tracks. I feel like 8 tracks is enough, and it also allows me to work with those 8 songs to really try and pull the best out of them. I don't like albums that are 15 songs long. Unless it's a double album, and like something like The Wall, for instance, that's different because it's a concept album. There you can get on board with that. But yeah, the artwork and all that stuff, like I I used to love looking at a lot of artwork for progressive rock albums. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, how nice was the artwork on some of those, like even Iron Maiden albums and stuff? They were so unique. There was just something about it, and then you opened up the inner gatefold, and there'd be more artwork, and even if it wasn't artwork, it would be exclusive pictures of the band or the artist, and they'd be captured in different ways that would make you really think that's so cool. I always loved the Pet Shop Boys Please album, because when you opened that album up, it was like 100 different photographs
collage,
of them,
wasn't it? Yeah.
A collage, and that was so cool, because it was like, oh man, look, that's so cool.
But it's a multifaceted experience with an album, isn't it? I mean, much more so with a piece of vinyl, but even with a CD, you get the media, you put it on, the record player or the CD player, then you sit back with the booklet or the gatefold sleeve, and as you're listening to the music, you're reading the liner notes, or you're following the lyrics, or you're looking at the artwork. If you take a Yes album, for example, I mean, you can just open that, triple gatefold thing and just sit there with this thing, magical stuff going on in the background, and Roger Dean's artwork, and you're just
gorgeous
in that place listening to that music. It was almost like a video of the day. You'd watch a video like Rio or something, and you were transported to a Caribbean island with swanky people in fancy suits on big yachts with fancy girls, and it suited the music. But back in the 70s, you had a Yes Roger Dean piece of artwork, and that was your fantasy world. That the music of Squire and Anderson and all that was just soundtracking. It was it's why I still love buying vinyl today, not just because it's a kind of a trendy thing to do, but because it's still the genuine multifaceted experience.
It's as an experience, absolutely.
I think you used to read all the people involved on the album, as well, didn't you? Or engineered by such a body and mastered to such a thing, and where it was recorded as well.
Yeah,
if you're listening to something streaming, you don't get any of that information. You don't even know who's produced it half the time.
But the way people consume media, though, is that they pick and choose the pieces that they like, and they just put it on a playlist, and therefore, again, the album concept is lost, because it's kind of, you know what I mean? But like what you're saying there, I used to love looking at albums, and you'd be like, oh my God, Sting did the harmonies on this Phil Collins track.
Yeah.
I thought that was Manicaci on drums. Do you know what I mean? Or you just know when it's a Steve Gadd drum, or do you know what I mean? It's like, you're like, oh my goodness, look at all of these names, Tony Levin and bass.
But that's the thing, you say you picked out like Manicaci, who's one of my all-time favourite drummers. I didn't really know who Manicaci was until so, and then you go and look out for Manicaci stuff, whether it's his own stuff or stuff he's played on, and you broaden your palette that way. Or you start reading liner notes, and you start seeing the same names cropping up, and you realise the reason I like Frankie Goes to Hollywood, ABC, Seal, Yes, and a bunch of other Trevor Horn productions is because of Trevor effing Horn.
Yes.
And you just realise that the DNA is what's drawing you in, and it's those kind of things. Let's talk gear, because we haven't touched on that yet, and we are the Pro Synth Network. So, what have you got in the moment? What did you make Odyssey with?
Odyssey, I recorded some of it in Propellerhead Reason. Well, it's called Reason Studios now, but I keep on slipping up. I keep calling it Propellerhead Reason Studios, and then I recorded the bulk of it in Ableton. The type of software that I've been using is Omnisphere. I love Omnisphere. I actually love a product by UVI called FM Suite. I mean, if you're looking for FM sounds which have been given that polish, box ready to drop in and play, FM Suite is incredible. If you have the hard drive space for it, it's about 40 gigabytes. It's big, but if you can do it in an external, then it's no problem. Gosh, what else did I use? Do you know, the thing is, I actually put the notes on the album. I put a list of, I took notes and put all the list of the stuff that I used. Shall
we have a look?
Yeah, go for it. It's
You keep talking, I'll bring that up.
Good work.
Yeah, so I used some UVI stuff as well. I'm a big UVI fan. I love their stuff, especially obviously Emulation 2 and Darklight. Those two are staples of my previous.
I have to tell people here, I'm slowing myself down, but I hear from Michael, like, I don't know, sometimes like every day for a number of weeks, and he's like, have you tried this one? Have you tried that one? What's this one like? Because he knows I'm a bit of a UVI fan as well, and you're always asking me about this stuff, and it's like, yeah, and then I think, oh yeah, I better go and buy that. So you're bad for me. But yeah, let's bring up this list of gear, because like you said, I mean, I should have noticed this, because I've had this page saved open on my browser now, because I'm trying to figure out how to get a copy of the album over here without the extortionate shipping charges, which I know is not your fault. I'm not having a moan, but it's the way of the world these days. Here you go. So Ableton 10, Reason 10, Spectra Omnisphere, V Collection, Soundspire, Lenard Digital Silent 1, UVI's Emulation 2, and Darklight. And then, is that a ChordJam 1 hardware ChordJam 1?
No, this the plugin.
The plugin, yep. XV5080 with the SRX World, DexEd.
Love that.
But any hardware on this album, is it all in the box?
I'm 99% in the box. The only extra kind of stuff that was added was I am an obsessed Ensoniq fan. I am literally obsessed with Ensoniq synthesizers, and I have a VFX, a TS10 behind the computer. Here's an MR rack, and then over here I have a Yamaha SY85.
I was going to say, where's the SY85? Because
that's there. And then if you can see there's a Kawai K4R.
Oh yeah.
Which I haven't used yet. I don't think I'll use the K4. I think I'll probably sell it. But it's funny because I had the SY85 because that was the very first proper synthesizer I ever owned as a kid. My father got that for me, and I was kind of nostalgic, so I bought it again, and then I found out Pet Shop Boys used it all over the Very album, so I was like, yeah, I can't sell that now. I'm just anything Pet Shop Boys, I'm just like, okay, cool. But yeah, I used a little bit of the VFX, some sounds from that on a couple of tracks, mostly for layering, but I have a feeling that I had planned for the next album to start using some more hardware integration into it, and it would be predominantly the Ensoniq stuff and some of the SY85.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Anything else before we move on to some news topics?
I was just thinking then, it's amazing how software synthesizers have come on, because I was convinced that Michael's album was 100% hardware. I just had no idea whatsoever. I thought, yeah, this is all vintage gear on here, and it's quite amazing.
The magic of VST.
Yeah. But I remember hearing a track, like, I'm going back about when VSTs hadn't been out that long. I heard a track and it was full of hardware sounds, and then I heard this sound, and I thought, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I said, why have you used a VST there? And I was right, I was dead sure for myself, thinking,
They've come on such a long way, haven't they?
Yeah, he was like, we're going to replace that after with a SH101. It's just like a guide track. And I thought, yeah, fair enough. You couldn't get away with using it. They're all right for getting ideas down, but you couldn't. But like your album, it sounds like spot on. It just shows you like the need for hardware is getting less and less.
It's caught up. I think it's caught up now. I think
it's a mad thing for me to say.
I definitely agree for sure, because like I say, it's a funny one, because if you think about, I guess, there's usually a boom in really good music when there's some kind of technological advancement, isn't there? I mean, I when I was at university doing like my applied music course, one of the topics that came up was about the kind of history of pop music, and the argument was that music's golden period was between 1965 and 1985. That was the golden period, and a lot of that was to do with the introduction of new instruments. You know, things like we covered earlier, the Mellotron, that gave a different palette to other musicians, and then obviously the synthesizer once it became affordable. That was the key word. It wasn't affordable to many people in the 70s. It was towards the late 70s that it became affordable, and you know, GarageBand type people could use synthesizers and learn that, and a lot of the gorgeous sounds that you heard were from experimentation. People didn't have anyone to fall back on to be able to say, I want to sound like him, because there wasn't a Jean-Michel Jarre or a Kraftwerk or a Vince Clarke or someone like that to take inspiration from. It was like, here's a synthesizer, make it talk. And I think now, because that period to now, the biggest technological advancement has been affordability in a computer being able to run software. Because, you know, when I was a kid and I wanted to record vocals, I had to pay £500 to go to a studio for a day that was like £40 an hour. And you were on the clock. Where, you know, you realise there's some things I can do at home. You know, I can do the MIDI at home and record a backing for whatever. But if I want to record a guitarist or vocals, session musicians, I have to go to a studio to do that, and it was a big event. Whereas now I can have someone come round to my house and record, and we do it all here. And there's a lot more flexibility in what I can do with it, because you recorded a take. And that was it. Whereas now you can take the take and you can fix things. If there's a mistake, you can chop the audio and fix it.
There was a thing that I've been in loads of studios, and I always found that like the atmosphere and the environment like brought something out of you. You know, like some of the I stayed up. We were in a studio called Liverpool Music House, and it was quite big at the time. You know, there was quite a few people in there at the time. Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics was in there while I was in there, and Brody out the Lightning Seeds, and it was a really, really great place. You know, there was a buzz about it, and I stayed up one night all through the night, and I was just in there on my own. It was terrifying, and I recorded a middle eight to a song we've been working on, but I just did it totally, you know, solo. And I'm sure I wouldn't have got that, you know, if I wasn't there at that. I wouldn't have got what the middle. It was pretty good. The middle eight was pretty good, but it was a product of the environment as much as anything else. And I think like sometimes, even though we can get like great results at home, we don't get inspired by the environment because we're always in it. You know,
I agree with that for sure. I record my vocals elsewhere. I mean, even though I've got this, you know, rudimentary setup I've got for recording vocals, that's more for demoing and for maybe if I needed some backing vocals that, you know, they don't require the highest fidelity because they're layered with other people's vocals. But I always go to another studio to record my vocals to what you're saying, because I want the atmosphere of I'm here to get in character, to sing this song and to find the best way to sing this song, and you get real, don't you? You're in that environment and you get very real about it. There's no footering about, there's no procrastination, because you're on the clock, you're paying for time, and you're there with somebody who's going to push you to find the best in yourself. You know, you're like, no mistakes. They cannot see the scaffolding. It's time to really get this right.
I think the demise of the big studio has had terrible, you know, kind of consequences. You know, you look at the fact that, you know, Sam West shut down a few years ago, and now he's moved, you know, like half a mile across the road to Ladbroke Grove, and you go to Sam Village, and it's just loads of rooms that are about the same size as this, with a small desk and, you know, Pro Tools rig, maybe one or two keyboards, and that's it. And people just go in, even bands. I was watching something the other night, and they were talking about, and obviously we are living in COVID times, and so things change, but they were just like going in individually just reeling off their little bit, and then somebody sits down with a laptop somewhere and puts it all together according to a formula, and then sticks it out, and it's next week's number one or something, and it's just so horribly contrived. Whereas, like you say, if you go into a big studio, when I stood in Studio One at Psalm West, wasn't even making any music, and I felt something. I mean, there was the history there, but it was an impressive room, and you felt like I've always it was my lifelong ambition to record there, never did, but to be in that room, I could just imagine what it would be like to record there, because you'd just be full of the vibe of the place. And every studio had its own vibe, and there were studios in Ibiza that were used heavily in the 90s by all sorts of bands, because there was a vibe there. In the 70s, it was Nassau and all of that stuff, the Compass Point stuff. Everyone was going to Nassau and the Bahamas to record because it had a vibe that delivered some kind of thing, and you just don't get that anymore, because everyone's either doing it in their bedrooms or in little cubicles with a laptop and a Pro Tools rig, and it's just
but Michael's
dull.
album sounds as though it was recorded.
Sorry, yeah, it does. Yeah, but then there you've got the exact opposite. Somebody who's actually made an album that sounds like it was recorded in those kinds of places.
I was really surprised.
Conscious of the time, so let's crack on with a few other things. But before we do, let me just give the mandatory plug here. So Odyssey is available now to download, and physical copies are coming soon. Go to newretrowave.bandcamp.com and you'll find Michael Oakley on there, or just search Michael Oakley on Google. It will just pop up with all the relevant links. So you can buy the album digitally on Bandcamp, which means that you can stream it and download it at the same time. There's neon orange vinyl, there's green glow vinyl, there's neon pink vinyl, there's even mini discs. Good man. So the orange mini disc I noticed had sold out. The blue one's still there. There's cassette tape as well. There's a CD digipack for those people that still like CDs, and some of these copies are already selling out. But there you go. Bandcamp is the place to go to get that album.
Oh God, a few of those are sold out. Bob Cratchit will be having turkey this year for Christmas.
But yeah, and of course you can check Michael out on YouTube and Facebook and SoundCloud and all those other great places as well. Right, let's go on to excuse me, a few more news topics before we wrap. Because what we find is that we have some news topics that kind of roll over, and by the time we get to them, they're like a couple of weeks old, and nobody's really bothered about them anymore. This one is obviously close to my heart in particular, as everybody knows. So get ready to take a drink. Or cross off your bingo cards. But CME have announced the pre-order availability of the WIDI UHost, which is their latest in their line of Bluetooth MIDI devices for your synths and computers, what have you. WIDI UHost is the latest one that delivers the kind of super low latency connectivity to devices that don't have Bluetooth MIDI as as a native standard. So, for example, Windows 10 machines or anything, if you're running an older Windows machine, doesn't support the Bluetooth MIDI protocol natively out of the box. You can even use this with a Mac, because even though Macs do support Bluetooth MIDI out of the box, they don't support or they certainly can't provide the ultra low latency that you can between two of these devices. So this is where this comes in. There's also the WIDI Bud Pro, which if you're familiar with WIDI, but there was a WIDI Bud a few years ago that was operating on Bluetooth 4. This now operates on Bluetooth 5. Now they've reached all the required sign-ups to put these into production. So now if you go to the CME website, you can order these for $29.99 instead of the usual $69 between now and May 23rd. Just enter the code BLEMIDI in the checkout box. You can order as many as you like and get this massive discount. So if you want to order 5 or 10 or just one, you'll get the individual price at $29.99, and that applies to the WIDI Bud Pro as well. Anyway, just thought I'd put that out there. We are hoping to get Thomas and Zhao from CME onto a special where we will look at all of the versions of WIDI and talk about their best use, whether you should use them with a synth or whether you want to use them with a computer or a tablet or a mobile device. We'll talk you through all the possible combinations thereof. But they're all there. Cryss, you were inquiring about this. Have you made the decision to invest?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna wait to see if they come out with my dream device, which would be a separate hub. That then you could run wires to synthesizers in another part of the room. So we'll see how that goes.
I thought that's what the hub was going to be. I thought it was,
Yeah.
Well, that's why I had a chat with Rob on the over video. Was it yesterday?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And to see is this do what I think it does? No,
sorry.
It's cool. It's a cool device, but it wasn't what I.
But we did come up with a solution for you. Which involved one of these devices. So yeah.
Which I still may do that, and I think that would be the WIDI jack. Was that the one that I would need?
Yeah, the WIDI jack is probably the most versatile because you can connect it to any device that uses 5-pin, 2.5mm TRS, 3.5mm TRS, 6.4mm TRS, mini MIDI, the 6-pin jack. So yeah, you can use that on all of them. Whereas WIDI Master is only 5-pin, and this is only USB. So yeah. There's a WIDI for everyone.
If you had a wireless USB, you could just stick your MIDI interface over the other side of the room and connect those.
I was having this conversation with Cryss yesterday because we were trying. Cryss has got a particular way he wanted to have things configured, and
it's power though, isn't it?
Well, we were kind of discussing this, and I said, I looked at doing something with all my Yamaha gear, because I was going to take this to a show. And I thought I will check that it all works in the way I want it to. And actually, you can use WIDI to kind of jump over obstacles where you can't run a MIDI cable. So, for example, if I was using the QX5 and I wanted to sequence all of my DX stuff there, so there's 4 DX synths there, and then I wanted to also sequence the Fairlight or the Emaxes, then I would have to run MIDI cables across that doorway, which is a pain in the neck because obviously you trip over stuff and it's not good.
You're just name dropping now, aren't you?
But what I'm saying is you can plug in a WIDI device on the output of the last one on this side and another one on the first one on the other side, and have those two connect through the MIDI through connection, and then you'll just kind of carry on daisy chaining from there. So it really is. It's a hugely versatile thing. Wilderness Music in the chat room says wireless and latency. I can't say this enough. The latency is imperceivable. It's 3 milliseconds. It is just imperceivable. I've been using it since it came out. With my KX88 sits here, and then connects to the rest of the studio via wireless MIDI, and you just don't notice it. It's just not there.
You've got my interest.
There you go. Come and see me later, mate. We'll get you sorted. But yeah, it's all out now. CME Pro.com, and get your pre-orders in now. They're going to ship in August, but you need to get your order in before May 23rd or by May 23rd to get that ridiculous discount from $69 down to $29.99. So it's more than 50% off. After May 23rd and up until launch, it goes up to about 30 something. So there's still a discount. I think it might actually be $34.99, so it's 50%. But yeah, available now. There's a WIDI for everyone. Let's talk about this other one. So I mentioned earlier that one of the news topics was going to be about this thing. When this was sent to me, I thought, oh god, this is this is a cheat. It's music by numbers. Am I really interested in it? And then I watched the video. I downloaded the demo. I played with it for literally 2 minutes and bought the damn thing because it's so good. And this is from Audiomodern.com, ChordJam, the ultimate chord machine, and it's basically a chord generator. But it's such a very powerful chord generator. Let's play the video. Let me just make sure. I have a funny feeling I didn't share the audio, so let me just do that again. Apologies for my ineptitude. So Share Audio, ChordJam, and Bosch. Here we go. Let's have a look at the quick video so you can see what it can do. And it's buffering. Fantastic. Here we go.
Introducing ChordJam, an innovative plugin that builds chords and progression patterns through intuitive, user-guided randomization. Choose from a variety of scale types, chord types, patterns, and progressions. ChordJam automatically randomizes any combination of parameters with every note played, serving up unpredictable but always musical variations. Create unique and complex chord structures and infinitely evolving progressions. ChordJam is the ultimate real-time compositional assistant for Mac, PC, and iPad.
So there you go. ChordJam. It's just so simple to use. You literally open up an instance of it in your DAW. You connect the instrument depending on how your DAW does that thing, and you just hit single keys. You tell it which scale you want, which key you're in, and there's loads of options and randomization features. You can change the how hard each note is hit. You can change which notes start first, which notes finish first. You can randomize all of this. It's incredibly powerful, and it's only $39 or $7.99 if you want to use it on iOS. I've just had an absolute whale of a time with this. I was using this with BBC Symphony Orchestra, and all of a sudden I'm playing chords because it's got inversions correct, and I can do all of that stuff. And I must admit, I was sounding fucking amazing, but just like that one finger stuff, because it saves me having to learn, all the chords and the inversions. It was just so cool. Did anybody else Ben? Did you download this and have a go?
Well, yeah. You say that it's almost idiot proof, but unfortunately not idiot proof. And I downloaded it, and I couldn't even find it. To put it on a track. So I've got it all. I didn't know whether it was like some sort of insert effect or an instrument.
What were you hosting it on?
Cubase.
Right, because I don't know Cubase, but in Logic you have to go to the MIDI effects slot on
that's
the.
why I couldn't get it. So I haven't actually tried it, but I have got something to contribute to the conversation. Say if you created a track that you was using drum loops for your drums, you were using presets and sound banks that you'd purchased or downloaded, using samples that you got off Splice, and the chords were coming from something like this. Where's you in that? You're not there. You're just like an operator of a load of machines.
You make a fair point, and this was my early assumption that this is just music by numbers. Yeah. But I think I feel slightly vindicated after what Michael said earlier, that it got me somewhere a damn sight quicker than it would if I was trying to figure it all out myself.
Yeah.
And
I'm not against it.
No.
It's a bit Andy Warhol, isn't it? It's like it's a product of operating machines, which all synthesis is, but you can put your own soul into it. The mood that you're feeling at the time. Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't tried it. It might be because I again, by the same token, I could do with all the help I can get when I'm making original music. So if something's going to take me on a new journey, then that's fantastic.
I can't. I've got all these synths here, but if you stand me in front of one of them and say knock out a tune, I cannot do that unless it's chopsticks, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And maybe a couple of others. But that's it, and all I know, I just know those by memory. I'm not a pianist. I'm not a keyboard player. I know what sounds good it sounds good to me when I'm kind of tinkering. But if I want to get a chord progression easily, in a particular key.
Yeah,
I don't even know what keys are good keys and bad keys. So this kind of helps me get in a ballpark, and then maybe that gets me the basis of a track I can then use my own sort of flourish on. Or maybe I'll just get another plugin that does bassline patterns for me. I mean, we talked about Reason earlier. Reason comes with a bunch of these players. One of them is a chord function. There's dual arpeggiators. There's drum pattern generators. There's you can use it for all sorts of things. If it gets you to a place quicker, I guess. Yeah. But I get where you're coming from, because that's exactly when I saw this advertised. I thought, oh, here we go, another music by numbers thing. And it's where's the fun? But trust me, it's fun.
I'm kind of surprised that that's the attitude about it. I mean, I've watched, I just recently watched a video where somebody was demonstrating some techniques using Logic, and so to do that, they just drag and drop samples into it from Logic's menu, and so it was really like a paint by numbers kind of track. Like, oh, okay, I've seen people do music like that. And wherever you are in music and making ability, that's totally fine. But I think with tools like ChordJam, so I have something that's similar to it called Scalar 2. Mm-hmm. And with these tools, I think the people that are going to get the most use out of them will already have some knowledge of music theory, and then you're kind of directing the plugin to go some places to get you out of your kind of well-worn grooves. So when I'm composing on guitar, I'm much more adventurous chord-wise, and it comes second nature, and my hands can just go to stuff, and I look at the patterns and see things and go, oh, maybe let me try this, and I'll try this with this chord. And I'm used to working with music theory on guitar. When I sit down at a keyboard, which I haven't had as long of a history of, I can play keyboards, but when I think about well, this song requires something more than a first, third, and a fifth, I have to start doing math, to think about, translating what I know. Now, I mean, it's the same music theory for different instruments, but I've gotten so used to doing it visually on the guitar that when I come to keyboard, I have to think a little bit more. But tools like these can kind of get you out of well-worn ruts, because you might not go to a certain inversion as likely as another one that you're used to using, that your hands go to or whatever. And so these kind of tools can get you out of that. Tools like Scalar, and I think I haven't gotten to try this, but I want to. Will also allow you to kind of flex out into more unusual chord voicings, and then you can experiment a little bit more with things again that are not your routine, and it can be very helpful. I mean, with this plugin versus say something like Scalar, this gives you that random ability where it's changing stuff, where Scalar doesn't do any of that. It's more like a songwriting tool, like you use in your workflow to kind of go places. But this, I think, would be as well, but it's almost like a nod towards like say working with Eurorack. I don't like traditional sequencers so much. I mean, I don't like to use them. I like music made with them. So I'll oftentimes go to marbles, Mutable Instruments marbles, Euclidean sequencer, and there's all sorts of random stuff that you can make happen. And you can find some interesting places to go that you yourself would not have normally gone. And I think that's one of the real joys of tools like this, that it's not a cheat to make a song. It's a tool to make a song more interesting, is how I would view it.
It's also semi-educational as well, because you start playing around with the settings and you're pressing some keys and you're getting, and you think, there's that chord that I've heard used, and that inversion, and that's what sounds good. And then you learn, so maybe later on you can actually say, I don't need that now because I know that I need to play it in this particular way. Is there something you would use, Michael?
Well, I come from a background of playing piano, and one of the things I used to do was play covers in piano bars. I used to play in bands as well at weddings, and because of that, and learning thousands of songs, like literally thousands of songs in different styles, that was probably the best learning experience that I ever had for, what chord sequences work, where does the melody want to take me and things like that. But would I use this? Absolutely. If it's one of those things where I am always on the side of use whatever works, and don't underestimate that even when you use something like that, you will use it in a certain way that will put your signature within that into the sound. I always think of it in terms of, you go to the supermarket and you buy a steak. It comes in a nice little package for you. Someone's went out and chopped that cow up and chopped the slab of meat, processed it, put it into a piece of packaging, and then you go to the shop and buy it, and all you have to do is fling it on the grill. They've taken all the hard work out for you, and then you can cook it in whatever way you want. I think it's kind of like that with music and tools like that. Someone's done the hard work, because Vince Clarke even said he wasn't the greatest when it came to. He had no idea of theory. He was just a kind of one finger, player. And you listen to a lot of those Erasure records. There's no pads. No. Whereas Pet Shop Boys were known for symphonic pads in the background, and you have to have a knowledge of theory to do that. In those days, you didn't have a tool like this. So if you're someone who's, maybe you're better at coming up with melody lines, bass lines, and rhythms, then a thing like that, to add that wash in the background of a pad sound or something, it would be very, very useful. You just, it's all about being creative, and these tools are designed to push you to find another facet of your creativity somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was doing something the other day, and I brought out I think it was the Promars, the Roland Cloud Promars, and I've never played with the arpeggiator, and I needed a bass line just to give me a basic bass line to work off of. And so I put the arpeggiator on and just held down 2 or 3 notes in the key, and it worked. Printed it out, and then just let it go. And I will go back to that and do something differently, but it got me to a place where I needed to be to move on to the next bit. And it was an automated thing, and all I did was hold 3 notes down on the keyboard, and the arpeggiator did all of the fancy stuff, and it sounds good. And I'll go back in and I'll tweak it. I might keep some of it and throw some of it away, but it's there and it's done. And I think the same can be said of something like this: is that you use it, gets you somewhere, gets you the idea, teaches you maybe even what works, what doesn't work, and it just gets you to a place where you can move on, I suppose. But you, like you say. And I love the steak analogy, because I love a good steak. But that is true. It's very true. I've never really thought about it that way. So many people are involved in the process for you to get it to where you are in the supermarket. But still, you've got to do what you've got to do to make that steak taste good. And you can make it taste awful. And that's got nothing to do with all of those people down the line. That's you, that is.
I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat steak.
Cauliflower steak, then, because that's apparently a thing.
The milk analogy: you're welcome to go and buy a cow and milk it if you want.
There you go.
Or you can just buy a carton of milk.
Bottom line is, it all comes back to cows, doesn't it? Steak, milk, it's cows.
But not to devalue the part, as you say, it's you're the chef.
Yeah.
You can cook it and you can overcook it, and it's horrible. You can add the wrong ingredients, but you as musicians, you do unwittingly, no matter where you pull from whatever to you use, you're still making your choices, and that's your signature that's getting put into the music.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Wagyu, for that.
Sasquatch brought up, the 4-chord song. And that's really an excellent example of it, because how many songs with that classic 4-chord progression are there? Or if you think about rock and roll 1-4-5 or jazz 2-5-1, it's like, how many songs have been built on they don't sound the same? Because everybody puts our personality into that. And I think, as you were saying, with a plugin like this is not a guaranteed thing to make anything. It's just a tool, and ultimately it depends on the tool wielder.
Well, that was kind of my point, though. I wasn't saying that this particular thing was wrong. I was saying that if somebody uses all of these options at the same time, like the drum option, the guitar option, then there is the reason that those 4 chord songs have individuality is because there's different players involved. There's a different guitarist playing that rhythm track. There's a different drummer doing the beat, and so that's where, if you heard those 4 songs, all those songs with those 4 chords played on the piano with the same vocalist, it'd sound like the same song. Now, my point is that there is no humanity coming into it from individuals in this, or even an individual if they're using everything. So it isn't going to sound like anybody in particular if you did that. Yeah, I don't think anybody would do that. I don't think anybody would. It's kind of like the GarageBand route, isn't it? You know, where you're just pressing buttons. You don't necessarily know what you're doing, but it comes out sounding really, really good.
Yeah.
So Ben, did you, inquiring minds want to know, did you use this type of software to write your hit song Porcelain?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's when I became vegetarian and gave up steak.
And is that, are you covering up the neck tattoos with makeup, or because we're in 1080 now?
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, so that is for all its merits or demerits, that's audiomodern.com is the website, and it's called ChordJam, and it's €39. And I don't, is that an offer price? Yes, because it's normally $49, so it's $39 at the moment. Buy once, get lifetime updates. There is a free trial, and the trial was good enough to persuade me to buy it, and it only has like a couple of scales in there and a couple of chord types, a few versions of chord types, but you can get a feel for the randomization aspect, and the randomization thing is, it's not just that you hit a button and things change, which is what happens, but you can also then randomize it and then still tweak it to get what you want. And what I found using it with like BBC SO was the playing of the notes slightly out of time. So when you hit chords on a like a big string chord on a synth, you're hitting all the notes at the same time. It can sound quite dull and lifeless. But with this, the chords are being played almost human-esque. So with these minuscule time differences, and it just makes it sound really, really nice. And that's something I couldn't do myself, so it kind of helps me out of a sticky patch. But there you go.
I'll get it working, and next week
have a go,
like singing its praises.
Next week you'll be saying, where's me cow? Let's talk about because what is the time there? Oh, blimey, we're way over time. It doesn't matter. Let's quickly talk about this one, because this had to have one of the most annoying demonstration videos, but in a kind of fun way. And Ben's nodding his head like he knows which I'm about to share. Let's have a watch of this one. This is Infiltrator. Here we go. Let's play this for you. Oh, here we go.
Infiltrator is a versatile multi-effect, which can stack, sequence, and modulate up to 10 different effects at once. It has liquid filters, delays, modulation, beat repeat, and many more, with 28 different effects in total. All of these can be controlled using the onboard sequencer, so you can do things like this. And if all that power sounds a little intimidating, relax. Okay. We've designed Infiltrator to be as easy to use as possible, but it also ships with an extensive library of 750 diverse presets, so you'll never run out of inspiration.
And there you go. There you go. That's Devious Machines. And the Infiltrator.
That example where he goes, "You can sound like this." What shit? It's like.
Well, do you know? I was into my drum and bass back in the day, and I kind of liked that. But it was slightly, kind of annoying in a nice kind of way. So let me just call up their website here so we can kind of have a closer look at what this is. Let me just make sure I've got the right website, which is that one there. So this is Infiltrated from Devious Machines. and it is a multi-effect evolved, according to them. Jaw-dropping effects, expressive control. It could be your new secret weapon. 28 effects, loads of envelopes. There's a sequencer in there. Liquid analog filtering, whatever that might be. That delivers. How did they do that? Transformations. Yeah, whoever wrote this is either having a laugh or is deluded. But they've got artist banks from a whole bunch of. It does seem to be very much a drum and bass kind of thing that's going on here. And I do have a soft spot for drum and bass. But is this anyone's cup of tea?
I downloaded it and
you couldn't find it to use it. No,
I got it working. And I had the Arturia Juno 60, whatever it's supposed to be, and this going, and I was just randomly flipping through presets on the Infiltrator and on the Juno 60, and it got to the point where I didn't know what was doing what. It was like it was this like mad sound, and I didn't know whether it was the Juno 60 like playing an arpeggio. I was like, oh, is it this doing that? Oh, it's so powerful. The video is awful, and the demonstrations on the video are even worse. But this it's a cracking little piece of software. It's really good. There's so much control. You can sequence everything in sync with what's going on. Filters. Really, if you were working to a budget, that you could probably get away with just having that effect, and you know, because it's got delays, it's got reverbs, it's got filters. The sequencer. It seems really, really powerful. I think it's for you know, I got off to a bad start by slagging the video off and saying it could sound shit, but it is a really good piece of kit. That I reckon it's well worth it, every penny, especially at that reduced price.
It does seem to be very drum and bass oriented, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, but
I'm sure people can use it in a different way.
Yeah, I certainly won't be doing drum and bass, but I could find a use for it, you know. Yeah.
Michael, do you think you'd find a use for this in your stuff?
Maybe. I'm going to download the demo and take it for a spin, because it's funny, you know, whenever I'm looking for, like, say, you know, samples or patch banks, you know, I never buy patch banks that are called Synthwave banks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I always like to buy maybe EDM banks or trance music banks, because I like to find sounds that are a little bit out there, so that when you pull them in, it's something interesting. And I guess, although, you know, the style of music that's been used in that demo is completely antiquated. Yeah, that was the first thing I was like, this style that has been portrayed in this is like 20 years out of date.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of, remember when Korg used to do, like, on the kind of decline of Korg's, like, synthesizer workstations in the kind of 2000s, like from about 2006, 2007, because I used to work in a shop called Sound Control.
Oh yes.
I was there the day the House of Cards fell in. The Korg's synthesizers used to have, like, an amazing amount of drum and bass sounds, and I was just like, this is like 2009. Like that genre is not popular anymore. But you know, I guess what I would look for in that is $69. It's a multi-effects processor. You're going to get value for money out of that, because you won't use it for drum and bass, will you? You know, if you're going to use it for different styles, and what you might find is some of those beat repeat things will work for any style. If you use it right, it can be a transition before you get to the chorus, or like a drum fill type thing. Delay stuff as well, like all of those types of effects. That would be quite useful. Would I use it? I don't know. I've got quite a lot of stuff at the moment already, which I haven't even used. That's my problem.
Yeah.
I bought too many, and now I'm at that stage where I'm like, I'm not buying. Take my wallet off of me. lock my PayPal account. I am not spending any more money on plugins. But then 2 minutes later, UVI, I've got I've got a new product.
I know you. I know you too well. I'll wake up to a message tomorrow morning saying, "What do you think of this? I'm about to pull the trigger."
I will. One thing I will say: UVI released something called Quadra recently.
Yes, yeah, we spoke about that. You like that?
What an incredible! It's one of the best things they've ever done. It's so unique, and you can use it in any style.
Yeah,
but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about this.
But you were saying earlier about not doing synthwave, doing something else, or changing the style because that makes you stand out. So the same could apply here.
Absolutely,
100% of drum and bass people will go out and buy this because it speaks to what they do, and they do it all the time. But you get a synthwave guy, or you get an EDM guy, or you get somebody else using that in a completely different way, and then all of a sudden they're sounding unique. Because nobody else in their genre is using this because it's all
well, two that come to mind: BT and Chicane. They used to use that type of effect,
stutter thing,
and that was in a lot more lower tempo, kind of chill dance type music. It's very possible, and it's a good road to go down.
Yeah,
always go the road less travelled.
Indeed. That sounds great in a Scottish accent, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, Cryss, did you have any thoughts on Infiltrator before we move on?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think this particular one is done really well. Again, aside from the demo, like I checked out some of the other demos on it. There's one of the, synth influencer guys, the one with the really low voice. He did a great walkthrough of it, showing the features and give you a different flavor for it. But there's several of these kind of plugins on the market now. I think like the Biome and Triad are similar. Stutter Edit 2, I think, is the BT one. And there's other plugins now that are kind of incorporated. I mean, like back in the day, you'd buy, some sort of effect, your phase shifter or whatever. You get like rate and depth on it. Or if you're lucky, you might get a couple other parameters, a mix control or something, but you're pretty much stuck with a triangle or sine wave LFO, or if you get extra option, you might get a square wave. But with things like this, now you have sequencers, envelopes, you're able to draw in wave shapes, for modulation shapes, and even come into things like UVI Shade, which is a filter program, but then it has, again, the filter can be controlled by all sorts of multi-segment envelopes and LFOs and combinations of all these things. And with a lot of this, it's stuff that you can already do in your DAW if your DAW comes with effects. But this takes out, it removes a big chunk of time of having to program all that stuff. And if you find something you like, instead of setting up a whole channel strip of stuff to be able to do that, plus your handwritten modulations on your track, something like this can take a lot of that work out. Yeah. Plus, like I think the way that Ben was using it is a completely valid way. I think is where most people will get into it. Is that you get your boring 707 drum sound or whatever. You're like, everybody's heard that. I can add some compression or some drive to it or something, but then if you process it with the sequencer on here, you can start adding modulating whatever it is, ring mod and filters and all sorts of stuff, and it doesn't have to be a cheesy result on it. And again, if you spend some time, what I did notice is that a lot of the parameters are very smart on here. A lot of things that I come to other programs and think, why didn't they add this type of, why can't I sync this part of the program time-wise, this part of the envelope time-wise to the track, but it won't allow me to do that. And they've done a lot of this kind of stuff in it.
Yeah. No, it's certainly an interesting tool. And I think, whilst they kind of focus on the drum and bass as it's, for its promotion, I think there are other videos on the website that I was kind of looking at whilst you guys were talking that are using it on guitars and different things. So it'd be interesting to see how that works out. So yeah, Infiltrator from deviousmachines.com. It is normally $99.99, but it's currently £69, and there is a demo that you can download to try it before you buy it. Right, we're getting close to bladder explosion time, so maybe we'll squeeze another one or something. I want to put this one in because every week before the show, we send our guest a list of the news topics we're going to discuss, and I spoke to Michael this morning in his time, and he said, "Oh my God, this thing here, it's incredible." So I feel like I'm kind of obliged to bring this one up because he was so enthused about it. And this one is, let me find the right here. So it's Velvet Machine from Phonolyth or Phonolyth, I don't know. It is a sonic texture generator stroke blur stroke non-linear reverb, and it is a mere $16 for Mac and Windows, $3.99 for iPad and iPhone. Also comes with a demo. Tell us, Michael, why did you like this one so much?
Oh, it just has, I love that non-lin sound. It's just gorgeous, and I was just like, $16? Take my money. Take my money.
Indeed.
It's got a very nice character to it because like the other, I guess, similar types of things I've got Valhalla Room, which has like a non-lin kind of reverb on it. I like some of the gated stuff for that. And the other one I've got is what's it, Megaverb by Gigahertz. That is, see if you like something that's got that classic, like kind of Phil Collinsy sort of gated non-lin type sound. That's amazing. This has got a similar quality to that, actually. Very similar quality. I just love that type of sound. There is something very, very, like, immediately you're like, for me, I'm just like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm at home with this.
Yeah. Let's have a listen to the demo here. I don't know how good this one is going to be because I haven't queued anything up, but let's see. It's going to buffer now and going to make me wait. There we go. No, you're not going to play? Play now. Come on, goddammit. Here we go. It certainly sounds very interesting and very creative just from those demos alone. I think I might actually buy that when we go off air.
I watched another video. There's a few videos, and there was one where it showed you a little bit more of that kind of more like kind of classic sounding non-lin. It's gorgeous. For $16, you will use it. You'll use it.
Flexible volume envelope with arbitrary number of segments and curvature. Effect times ranging from 50 milliseconds to 10 seconds. Response density adjustable from 1 to 2,000 repeats per second. And I could go on, but I won't. And it's compatible. It's an audio unit VST3. Also works on iOS as well as an AUV3 and standalone. Cryss, you're kind of our resident effects guy, and you are a huge Valhalla fan. I'm guessing you probably would want something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was the one that found this, and for the $16, it was a little bit at first as I was starting to check it out. Like, what you talking about, Willis? This kind of seems cool, and I'm really a sucker for any sort of granular type effects, and so I mean, 3 that we had on the list or any sort of delay and reverb type effects. So Fabfilter Timeless 3, Unfiltered audio Silo, and this Velvet Machine. I bought all 3 of them, and I've been having a lot of fun with this one. Even better than the demo. I mean, just sitting and playing it. One thing that you should try with it, like, so if you're trying it with soft synth sounds like pads, I don't think you're going to have a lot of good luck with it. It'll be okay, but with really sharp quick attack sounds. It is really gorgeous. And then, you can see you can draw the volume envelope out as how you want the sound to be introduced with your sound. So as it does its convolution and stuff, it can come in different ways, and it can sound like delay or reverb. And of course, it has that granular sound, and you can, how dense do you want it? You can bring the density down and have it sound a little more like delay. And again, that would be the same for the unfiltered audio silo, which does some similar things, but a whole lot more. But I like that this is very simple, and it's very musical sounding right away. It's a great plugin, and for $16, I'm really hoping that these guys are going to do more. I think this is their first program that's available as on Mac. I think
yes.
I think the rest were iOS. So hopefully, just like Sine Vibes, we'll see them kind of enter the regular plugin market and come out with some really interesting plugins, and for pretty cheap too.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I mean, that bargain price. Ben, what do you think? Quickly.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. It just literally transformed the crappiest sounds into something wonderful. It's really, really nice tone to it. Very musical, like Cryss said. And I was just playing. I had like a really crappy brass sound, and I was just playing that through one of the effects, one of the presets, and it just sounded amazing. And I was bending the chords with the pitch bend, and it just created this really eerie, atmospheric scene thing. It was just soundtrack stuff straight away. It was brilliant. Worth every penny that. And I'll probably be going buying the I only got the demo, but I will probably buy the full thing as soon as we finish this.
Yeah. Cryss mentioned this. Oh, so I've just locked my screen. Carry on, Ben. Sorry.
I was just going to say Sasquatch has mentioned that this. Just before I forget, that there's an Isotope sale on at the minute.
Oh yes, they're doing a big bundle, aren't they, with Stutter Edit 2
and Ozone and stuff. $49. So
yeah,
that's really.
Cryss mentioned this one, Timeless 3 from Fabfilter, from Everyday Echoes to Lush Modulation. Again with a 30-day trial. How much was this one, Cryss? Do you remember?
It was a bit more. I think I got it on found somewhere online. I got it for 100. I don't remember what it was, 110, 116, something like that.
Let's have a quick look. Total bundle. No, Fabfilter Timeless 3, £94. So yeah, I guess that's just it's over 100 US. But what's different about this one then, Cryss? Because I haven't had a chance to play with this one.
So definitely like a sound designer type of delay. Like if you're looking to slap some delay on your guitar solo or something, this is not what I would go to. I would go to something else. But if you're looking again at processing stuff and making soundscapes, this is quite an interesting plugin to do it, and it's very versatile. I mean, with its filter setup, and then of course it has all the regular stuff that most delays have now, like drive and a way to affect the quality of it. But then it has a visual readout on here. I think it is a little different than most delays that you see. You can see on the right hand side how you can shape and also automate filter stuff on there. On the left hand side you see the lines going up and down, which represent a stereo field, so you can offset things. And again, this is not like revolutionary, but it's an interesting way of dealing with it and seeing it, especially if you're a visual user, learner, that this is works really well, and you can kind of see the changes that you're making as well as hearing them. But again, it just ends up being very versatile compared to most delays, in that you can attach all sorts of modulators to the things that are, the parameters it has, whether that's a stereo field or the filter or anything like that. It's a very versatile and very controllable.
And the other one that was mentioned was Silo, which again was something I didn't take a look at myself. I have to admit, I did a Ben. I didn't download it though. any thoughts about this one? Because this is Silo from Unfiltered Audio. It's $129 down from $179. Spaced like you've never heard it before. It's unlike any other reverb out there. Isn't every reverb builder's unlike any other reverb that's out there? But I don't know. Is this unlike any other reverb that's out there? Anyone?
Yeah, this is the only one out of all of the list actually that I had watched a video of before, before obviously seeing the show notes and you know, anything that's on Plugin Alliance, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to give this a serious watch, because most of the time, anything that's on Plugin Alliance is an incredible product.
Yeah.
But I must say, you know, just like one of the previous products, the multi-effects thing, I was disappointed by the video. It just didn't sell. It just did not sell me the product. And I felt like like when someone is creating like a demo to show you, you want it to be simplified to just get the gist of like, how does this sound? Not necessarily what does this do specifically for 10 minutes, just 5 minutes. Show me this in action. How does this make a piano sound? If I put drums through this, what could it do? And it just felt like the demo just went a little bit too into technical territory. And I still don't really know fully what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I watched the video and see. Let's see if, I'm not sure if this is the one. Yeah, this is the one, I think. Mandatory Richard Devine guest spot in here as well.
You can get a lot of really interesting timbres and textures out of Silo.
Do you know, that isn't the video I watched, because the video I watched was a lady talking through the different things that you could do with it, and that actually it's kind of granular, isn't it, really?
Yeah, so it has 3 sections in it, basically. So the first is a granular section, which you can do all the standard granular type effects, reverse, stretch, and you know how it plays through samples and repeats it, how many grains you have, and so that's a pretty standard thing. The second is I can't remember what they call it off the top of my head, but it's just kind of 2 or 3 dimensional representation of objects in a stereo field, and the grains, you control how the grains are appearing in the stereo spectrum. And then a reverb, which I wasn't really a big fan of the reverb, but then all 3 in the mixed components of the plugin have Euclidean type operations. So it will kind of cycle through within a Euclidean sequence as to when things are going to be triggered, or where they're going to appear, or when they're going to appear in a stereo field.
I see. Well, there you go. That's unfilteredaudio.com. Silo is the product. It's currently on sale at $129 down from $179. If that floats your boat, then go for it, guys. My bladder is telling me it's time to wrap up. Otherwise, Otherwise, this that was full to start with is about to get full up again. Michael, listen, mate, it's been great to kind of to have you on the show and to hear your process and your history and to hear your opinions on all of the stuff. Continued success with the album. I hope that all the other versions sell out. I shall be getting hold of my copy as soon as we can. What are you up to for the rest of your day? Anything interesting?
Me, I'm going to make sure that my cats are all right, because obviously they are downstairs. Because it's summer here, the windows are open, so they just come in and out. So I have to keep an eye on them, because they're mischievous.
Yes, yep. I have 2 myself. I have a window just here, and underneath is a conservatory, and they think it's great fun jumping onto the plastic roof and causing all sorts of mayhem. And then they just sit there and say, "Get me down!" So we have to climb up and get them down.
How many cats have you got?
Who, me or Mike?
But you just said you've got 2.
I have four cats.
4?
Oh,
wow.
2 girls, 2 boys. It's like ABBA in this house.
You've outdone me. I've got 3.
Oh dear. No. So anyway, look, thanks again for coming on. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm sure that we'll speak soon anyway, as we normally do. What was that, Cryss?
What?
I thought you were waving or something.
No, I was
No.
just scratching my eye.
I'm just scratching your eye. Okay, fair enough. How about you, Chris? What are you doing for the rest of the day?
Yeah, working. I was doing some video stuff, which is why I have guitar equipment up on the board. But,
Gotcha.
Up on the table, I guess. It's just
Yeah, say the Moog's behind you today, isn't it?
Yeah. So, that's mainly what I'm up to.
Cool stuff. Ben, busy?
I'm gonna spend a little bit of time with Vicky now, and then when she falls asleep, I'm gonna come back downstairs. I'm gonna buy some plugins and pull an all-nighter making some music. That's
stuff.
my plan.
I've got to go to bed early because I'm meeting Simon at lunchtime tomorrow. We're doing another Fairlight part exchange, and I'm getting my Rev 7.
Wow.
Very nice.
Can't wait for that. I should go down and I'll probably have a quick snifter of grappa or a gin and tonic or something, and then straight to bed. Anyway, there we go. That's another show. Thanks to everyone for joining in. Thanks to all the people in the chat. So I'm not going to name names because you all know who you are and you're regulars. And if this is the first time you've watched the show, welcome. Where the hell have you been? But what you should do is hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell to get notified of every show that we put out, which is every week, same time, same place. Let me just have a quick look on my list. Who have we got next week? Next week, we've got Suit and Tie Guy, Mr. John Drake. So he'll be here to tell us all about his hardware developments and whether he's got a NobCon to arrange this year or not. Coming up the week after that, we've got Manny Fernandez, the doc, the FM programmer extraordinaire. June 18th, Roger Lyons, New Order's keyboard tech, Alt J's keyboard tech, Kaiser Chief's keyboard tech, he's coming on. And then June 25th, we've got Kent Spong, who is the supreme restorer. Certainly here in the UK, there's not a machine he probably hasn't touched that isn't worth $1 million. And then July 2nd, JJ Yexalik, Art of Noise, and many other things beyond. He will be on the show.
Wow, that's one I'm definitely putting in my calendar.
Now,
what a legend!
Absolutely. So he's going to miss it as well. But we have. We're not going to say any. We've got one more name that I can say because I've nailed the sod down. Mark Doty will be on this show July 30th. We've booked him. He cannot get out of it under pain of death. He will be here July 30th. So really looking forward to getting him on the show. That will be very, very cool. But I have to say, we have been working hard behind the scenes, and we've got 4 more people booked, or potentially, just looking for dates and stuff. I'm not going to mention names, but we are talking legends.
Harrison Ford.
Oh no, not quite. But we are talking probably one of the biggest synth legends to come out of the UK ever. He's kind of like a godfather of synths. So I'll leave that one with you. From the USA, from the USA, we have got another kind of godfather of synthesis and keyboards, and a writer of some of the, I'm not just saying this, some of the biggest selling, most popular songs of all time will be on this show, hopefully in the next month or so. We've got one of the greatest synth designers of the modern age.
There's only one.
Well, that's true. But we've got one of the greatest synth designers who has worked for a number of companies as well as his own. We've got him coming on, and who is? And I keep forgetting this one, but you reminded me of today. Again, another English synth legend. I can't really say anything about him. He's been in some of the biggest synth bands and prog bands of the 20th and early 21st century. So yeah, we've been hard at work, and we will be announcing those ones as we go on. But please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you get the reminders, hit the bell, you get the notifications, and of course do join us if you haven't already, on the Facebook page, which is just go to Facebook and search Pro Synth Network. We've had a big influx of people joining the group recently. Some of them haven't been answering the membership questions, and I just wanted to take this time to say we're not vetting people. We're not looking at whether you're worthy or not. We're just making sure that you're human and you want to be there. It's all it is. So if you're watching this and you asked to join and you still haven't been given access to the group, it's probably because you didn't answer all the questions. So just go back and answer them. And it's just like basically, what level of musician do you consider yourself to be? That's just the human checking. And then, do you agree to follow the rules? And I can't remember what the third one is. It's a silly one. But just answer those and then you're in. That's it. No faff. So please do that and come and join us there. And of course, you can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and you can talk to us there as well. You can email us there. And of course, one last plug for the donation. It's in the link in the description below. But if you do fancy donating, and thank you to the people that have been donating throughout the show. I've noticed some emails come in. Thank you for your generosity. It's what keeps us looking so fantastic now in full 1080p. But also, it keeps us going as a channel for a lot longer. I'm going to stop there now, and I'm just going to say thank you once again to Michael Oakley. Go and buy his album. It's brilliant. If you don't believe me, you can stream it first and then buy it. But do buy it, because buy it through Bandcamp. Ben, Cryss, as always, an honour and a pleasure. Thank you, gents. Well, we shall speak in the next few days. Yeah. And to everyone in the chat room, yes, thank you. Everyone in the chat room, have a great weekend. Take the greatest of care. Stay safe, stay healthy, get your jabs, do whatever you need to do so we can get back gigging and just mixing with people again. That'll be fun. Take the greatest of care. We'll see you all soon. Bye.